Good morning and welcome to the Landmarks Preservation Commission's public hearing and public meeting of October 8th, 2024. We'll begin this morning by taking attendance, and I'll ask our General Counsel, Mark Silberman, to call the roll.
Chair Carroll,
Here.
Vice Chair Bland,
Here.
Commissioner Chapin,
Here.
Commissioner Chen,
Yeah.
Commissioner Chu,
Here.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Here.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Jefferson,
Yeah.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Here.
Commissioner Matt.
Here. All right. Good morning again, and welcome to our public hearing and public meeting for today, October 8th, Tuesday. Our hearing is being held in our hearing room at 1 Center Street on the 9th floor. It is also being held via Zoom for anyone who would like to participate remotely. And it is being live streamed on our YouTube channel for anyone who would like to watch the proceedings. We'll begin this morning with a public meeting agenda for applications for work on designated properties that have already had a public hearing and for which we've already taken testimony and provided comments. And the applicants are back today with revised proposals in response to those comments. And then we will move to our public hearing agenda to review new applications for work on designated properties. And with that, I will turn it over to our Director of Preservation, Corey Harala.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. Start today's Preservation Department agenda with public meeting item number 1, LPC 24-09233, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 146, Lot 11, 109 West Broadway in the Tribeca South Historic District. This is an Italianate-style store and loft building built in 1860, and the application is to establish a master plan governing the future installation of painted wall signs. This was last presented at the public hearing of June 4th, 2024. No action was taken at that time. The applicants will present revisions to the proposal after we open the proceedings.
Okay, so we'll do that now so the applicants can begin. Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to open the proceedings?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and I'll also note for the record, Commissioner Ginsburg is recused on this item, so you may go ahead.
Thank you and good morning. Thank you for having us here again today. It's a pleasure seeing many of you again. Quick introductions. My name is Ahmad Sayar, president of Atlas Media. I'm joined here today by Stuart Beckerman, legal counsel, Joe Barino, who is the head of real estate at New Tradition Media, and Misha Hunter from Lee Saltzman Architects, senior preservationist. Again, we're here to discuss the property at 109 West Broadway. Without further ado, we'll jump right into the presentation, hand off the mic to Misha.
Good morning, commissioners. Misha Hunter, Lee Saltzman Architects. Very excited to be here today and look forward to the comments and discussion that will happen today. Just as a, just make sure I can advance. Oh. Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay. Just want to make sure I can be heard. And then also advance the clicker. I'm pressing this button, but maybe it's not working. There we go. There we go. That's what we want. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so just to begin, you know, this particular proposal really presented, I think, a very unique situation. And Lee Saltzman approached the project with tremendous amount of care and research. And one of the first things that we did was really look at the commission level record of prior approvals, as well as no action and denials regarding facade signage, both on the secondary facade and the principal facade. And the record that we found included 31 commission level instances. And of those 31 examples, 4 included approvals regarding signage at the principal facade. So the overwhelming majority of cases included signage at secondary elevations. And this particular condition is extremely unique in that it is a non-accessory sign on a principal facade. that has existed there historically. So I'm just going to advance, hopefully. There we go. Oh, I jumped. So just to note again for the commissioners that were not here for the June 24th public hearing, just to be clear, the location of the building is at the southeast corner of West Broadway and Reed Street, southwest, excuse me, edge of the Tribeca South Historic District and the southeast corner of the intersection. It's a 5-story masonry and cast iron Italianate style store and loft building that was designed by an unknown architect and constructed in 1860. The Reed Street facade is 25 feet and the West Broadway facade is 61 feet. The sandstone facing was installed above the second floor after construction. The zoning map, as you can see, it's a special purpose district. Existing signs have been determined legal, non-conforming, non-accessory advertising signs installed in the Cold War era civil defense as part of a pro-painting campaign that was spearheaded by a national trade group, which is now known as the American Coatings Association. There we go. Another part of the research that we did was trying to look at the record of advertising signs in Tribeca. And one of the things that we found was just that there was an extraordinary amount of signs, and in particular, monumental multi-story signs on corner buildings that part of the building faced onto the West Broadway frontage. So this vehicular corridor really attracted these large signs. And so we definitely see a pattern of that activity historically in the record. And 2 of those signs particularly are shown here. One was for the remedy for constipation, liver trouble, and stomach ailments. The doctor in a candy form, which was 3 stories, and the stag smoking tobacco, which is everlastingly good, which was 4 stories. So you can see, and then the far left image is actually the different types of signs that at least existed historically on West Broadway before the current signs that we see today. At the intersection of West Broadway and Reed Street, we found also just a plethora of signs. You can see them stacked on the right side image, almost like what you would see in Times Square. So this is the exact intersection where the building was historically, remains today, and just a very, very large amount of concentrated signs. We're indebted to the Landmarks Preservation Commission research staff for finding a 1890s article in the Lexington, Kentucky Daily Reader that actually noted that there had been a paint, paste, paper, push sign for the Ramsey Company that noted itself as a promoter of publicity, and that they had installed a large sign on the wall of their building, but we don't have a graphic image that represented that sign. And then on the right, we can see the fact that Mr. Oscar Good, who was the billboard king, actually had offices at 109 to 113 West Broadway. So he was directly connected with this particular building. He is known particularly as one of the pioneers of illuminated signs, advertising signs in Times Square. So the Times Square that we know today was influenced, in fact, by Mr. Good and his early work signage. Okay. Another part of the research that we looked at was the paint up, clean up, fix up campaigns. And we found a number of evidences of these campaigns which existed across the country. Apparently, more than 7,000 communities participated. This is the post First World War campaign. You can see some images on the left side of the screen. And the goal was at that time to reduce fire insurance rates and fire losses, raise property values, and of course, sell paint. And then on the right, we also found a new permutation of the Paint Up, Clean Up campaign during the Cold War, when there was a tremendous focus on civil defense. And the visual in the middle of the slide is called The House in the Middle. This was actually a video that was performed of a nuclear test to see which of the three houses might withstand a nuclear blast. And it was found that the house that was well painted and where the interior was extremely tidy survived, whereas homes that were poorly painted and where the residents did not attend to the cleanliness of the interior of their homes did not survive. So this was called the video of The House in the Middle. I encourage you to please watch it. It's quite educational. Okay, and then as we do with all studies, we want to look at the chronology that we can see from the visual record, whether from drawings or photographs. In this case, we did not have drawings, but we did find a photographic record. So pre-1914, we're not entirely sure what the condition of signage was on the West Broadway facade, but definitely by 1914, we are seeing signs that may have been painted on wood panels or painted on canvas stretched on wood frames. And these included signs for the White Light Company incandescent gas lights and Indestructo, the everlasting wattage. So definitely have those signs. By 1939 tax photo, we're only seeing signs for primarily for the retail at the lower floors, but we're not seeing signs at the upper floors. Then in 1975, you can see that the photo on the far right-hand side of the upper register of this slide shows the condition of the northmost portion of the West Broadway facade of 109 to 113. And in that image, you can see the northmost panel that is that paint, paste, paper, push sign. So what we can discern from this is that sometime between 1939 and 1975, this signage campaign was for sure implemented on this building. So we can't narrow it down any further than that, but that for sure gives us at least a time window of when these signs existed. And just to be clear, the text of the sign reads "Brush Up Business" with paint, paste, paper, push on the north bay. And then as you can see on the lower register from 86, 92, and then currently the right panel or the southmost panel is a monumental picture of a hand holding a paintbrush. And the goal was to improve your business with outdoor billboards that were painted, pasted, and papered. And push literally means to sell. Another aspect of the research that we did was looking at trying to date the existing signs and also looking at the etymology of the word push, because I think that's also very instructive. We actually spoke with a graphic artist who said that based on the type or font type specimen books that he had in his collection, the font style of the existing signs may have dated from the 20s to the 40s, but the 3D effect that you can see on the letters that look like they're sort of in shadow a little bit, there's that sort of 3D aspect, that indicates a slightly later date of the 40s to the 50s, which seems to align with the photo research that we found, the chronological research that we were able to perform. And then looking at the Oxford English Dictionary, we looked at the earliest use of the word push in a marketing sense. And this may have dated back to 1872, where push is a marketing or promotional effort defined as a strategy where a firm attempts to push its products onto consumers. So this was never intended as a signage campaign that promoted a specific retailer, a specific vendor of paint, but rather the kind of like a trade group or a trade association that really tried to promote all vendors of paint, all vendors of coatings. So that was more inclusive and less specific. And then I'm going to hand it back to Ahmad, who's going to speak a little bit more about the proposed signage master plan and responsiveness to the commissioner's comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Misha. And so what we have here now on your left-hand side is the current view of the signs. And in the middle view, we see the original proposal that we shared with you all on June 24th. And the revised proposal that we are bringing to you today on the right-hand side. So to recap the commissioner's comments, the painted wall should complement the facade without overwhelming it or dominating it. Reduce the size of the signs so that they harmonize with the architectural features. And consider the current style of the painted wall and provide a similar aesthetic. And so taking those comments into consideration, what we've done with our current proposal is we have decreased the size by about 6% of both sides of both panels to roughly 21.9% of the west facade. More specifically, what we've also done is, and this is the most notable change in our proposal, is in taking a look at the design, the historical design of both panels, and speaking with various muralists and artists, tapping into my own experience. I spent several years at Colossal Media. Those you may be familiar with them. They are a leading hand-painted mural company, very pivotal in the signage that we see across LPC districts right now. And so what we've defined as, we've defined the left side, and I'm going to take 2 steps back to the original design. What we've determined here is that the left-hand side qualifies or is defined as simple graphic artwork, whereas the right-hand panel with the hand holding the brush would be defined as complex organic. And so in keeping consistent with the traditional style of paint for the murals, we've decided to implement the same type of style on our side, where you'll see on the left-hand side, we've limited it to simple graphic, and the right-hand side to complex organic. Now, again, this is in keeping with the traditional style of paint. I do want to reiterate that the signs have obtained 0D1 status through DOB. And so in addition to that, we will be incorporating the solid painted border that we included in the last go around on June 24th as well. So again, to summarize the key changes, we have brought down the size of both panels and keeping consistent and respecting the architectural nuances of the building. You could see that the top panels are sort of aligned with the archways of the top level windows. We've brought up the bottom panel, the bottom of both panels as well, to align with the bottom edges of the bottom set of windows, restricting the left side to simple graphic design and restricting the right side to complex organic design. We thought it'd be helpful to jump into what those design styles mean and how we can interpret them. And so this is meant to be a glossary of simple graphic artwork examples. Again, simple graphic is a design featuring bold shapes, colors, simple text, and non-organic elements. And that's the key here. So heavy text, simple colors. Whereas the other side would be the complex organic side, the right side. And again, it's a style consisting of intricate forms, which include realism, illustrations, human portraits, natural landscapes, food, animals, and really anything organic in nature. That concludes.
Thank you very much. All right. Do we have questions? Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
On West Broadway, in your research, did you find any signs that were on the primary facade of buildings?
Misha, the question is, in your research, did you find any signs that were on the primary facades of buildings?
Scroll to, let's show those examples. Oh. Yeah, so we found, 4 examples, where the commission has taken action, regarding sign approvals on multiple facades. Far left, is the Capital One, sign that's in the West Village. The second example is the, Sephora, so that is, more of just a, representation of an S. And then the most recent is the 107 Spring Street, which was approved with modifications. That's in Soho. Don't recall for the example, but at the end of the day, the 31 examples that we looked at, the majority were on secondary facades.
Okay. And I think of those 3, only the 107 Spring Street was for a master plan for the signs to change over time. But Misha, did you find historic examples?
On principal facades? Oh, absolutely.
Can you just run through those again?
That goes back to what I showed at the very beginning in Tribeca. And one of the things that we found, we currently, again, not looking to find it, but just finding it, was this pattern. Look back. There we go. This pattern of monumental multi-story signs for corner buildings facing onto West Broadway. So one side might face onto a side street, principal facade, and then the other principal facade fronted onto West Broadway. Because of that high volume vehicular passage on West Broadway, and trying to get hopefully as much bang for the buck for signs, getting the most eyes to signs. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, so then I think we can move to our discussion. So thank you for the thoughtful presentation. And commissioners, as you know, we saw this last time, which was on last June. And at that time, we had a similar presentation where we saw historic examples of painted wall signs in this and nearby historic districts that have more commercial character. And as you know, we have adopted a sort of a policy to approve painted wall signs on secondary facades in these historic districts based on the historic prototypes, but have in terms of the design of the sign, been very liberal. And so we have approved master plans that allow for signs to be changed over time with very few parameters, mostly that the sign be a certain size and percentage of the visible wall surface, that it have a painted border to contain it. And but we have not created parameters around the colors or the type of, whether it's organic or realism or illustrative or text. And these are on secondary facades and usually about 20 to 25% of the visible wall surface. And the master plans have typically run for 10 years. And what that means is that with each installation, they come back to the staff to say this is what we're changing it to, and the staff issues an authorization to proceed with the caveat that they give us a photograph of each installation so that over the 10 years, we have a record of how it looked and can revisit it after the 10 years. And what makes this application different from those is that it is a primary facade. And so the last time we saw this, we noted that the building had historically had painted signs in these locations from sometime between 1939 and 1975. And we had a similar presentation about the sort of the history of how these signs were used in the paint and cleanup campaigns. And at that time, we asked the applicants to restudy the proposal. We had concerns that the signs on the primary facade detracted from the architectural features of the building, and asked them to restudy them, thinking about things like size, the design content, and its relationship to the architectural features of the building. So they're back today with a proposal that reduces the height of the signs by both lowering it at the top and raising it at the bottom to align with windows. They are now proposing text and graphics only on the left side and imagery on the right side. And so we'll have our discussion about whether this sort of addresses the concerns that we had at that time. Commissioner Chu, would you like to start this one?
Sure. This is for me.
Oh, and I do also want to note for the record that we did receive 5 letters from individuals in recommending denial.
I appreciate the length of the history of the building and actually all the research done on the existing painted signage that is on the building. This is a tough one. I think that because it's so much visible on the primary facade on the street, I have to hesitate and really think about this, because the reason that I see value in the signage is really because of the historic nature of what's there now. I think that the applicant did a wonderful job of explaining, even in research on the font and the word choices. It makes me feel like that the mural itself or the painting itself is significant to the historic nature of the building. In terms of composition, what's being proposed, I think that I also appreciate the fact that they looked at there's text on one side and there's an image and organic on the right, and then they really tried to work with the historic nature of what was there. I have to say, though, my feeling is that in most cases, when we look at these applications, the proposed signage is not replacing something that is actually there already. And I think that's one of my biggest issues is it's such a beautiful existing sign that reflects a message of its time. The new advertising, I think, does a good job of trying to replicate the intent in terms of real estate, but I feel like we're losing something here. I also do feel that in terms of composition, color, what was there does have a sense of hierarchy to me. I distinguish windows and building architectural elements from treatment, which is what's there now. I really can see that this is a part of the masonry facade, the blank facade. On the proposed options, original and the revised, I feel like there's a competing nature to the facade, and even the colors and the graphics confuse the windows with the blank walls. Therefore, I do feel that it's not appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner, I'd just like to talk briefly about sort of the history of our review of historic signage, and that historically the commission has not found that historic signage is considered significant and needs to be preserved. Now, that's a separate issue from whether the color palette and the way it appears is used as a comparison to what is being proposed in the current thing. But we have never required that a historic sign be maintained. So I just want to make sure that's clear, that if the commission decided not to approve this application, for example, and they came in and wanted to paint over the sign, that would be something the staff could approve. So it's not an either or, but you could use it as an example, perhaps as you did, of maybe why that doesn't seem to compete in the same way. If that's so, I hope that's clear.
Well, okay, so then if that's the case, I guess I could talk about the quality of the existing graphic and what's being proposed. So a couple things. I see that the applicant has reduced the scale of the signage, and I think that was in response to the commission's comments about the size of it. I do feel that it's confusing to me again, because the existing condition clearly defines an architectural recess. And now I'm confused as to what the building is doing because I can't see it anymore. So that seems as if it's a facade that's flat, but it is not in fact flat. It has 3 bays that project, maybe a width of brick out. So I do think that confuses the building's reading. Again, I spoke about the color. I feel like the color is distracting in terms of its balance with the windows. And it says logo brand. I assume that's just a placeholder, so we don't really know what that would
Right.
be.
And that would be the idea of a master plan, is that it could be any color or any signage without parameters as it's proposed today.
Right. It's because of the scale of this, everything that's on the graphic affects the building is my comment here, because it's hard to separate them because of the amount of facade that it occupies. So there needs to be really a distinguishing nature to distinguish this from the architecture. Right now, I'm confused with the proposed graphic. I even find the frame confusing because it now focuses me on two rectangles within the facade. Honestly, I've done a lot of graphic work on buildings. Graphic designers like to run their lettering like this as a revised, but there's something about the other one that feels like it regards the building in terms of its positioning, and the verticality there feels like it's more of an applique, like it could have been a banner.
Got it. All right. Thank you, Commissioner Master.
Yeah, I'm going to note that we have examples, historical examples of these types of painted wall signs in Tribeca, multi-story painted wall signs. So there definitely is a historic precedence for this. And you know, this case is a little unique because you do have a painted wall sign on the building that, you know, we've had for a long time with similar dimensions, which, you know, would almost argue that it could be replaced. And I know the first time we had asked them to adjust the size because we felt that it overwhelmed the building. And even though they have reduced the sign, and even though they've made efforts to put, you know, I guess the text on one side and, you know, pictures more on the other side, in keeping with the original historic sign, I still feel that it overwhelms the architectural features of the building. It is a primary facade on a prominent corner. And typically we've limited these painted wall signs to 20-25%, even on a secondary facade. So I can't see how, even with the historic context, how we would be able to approve this, especially given that we really can't regulate the graphics and the colors that would go within the signs. So I don't think this is appropriate.
Commissioner Jefferson.
It's very interesting when we use historic precedents to kind of give an example why we should do something. We have to be more precise, I think, when you use that. The scale of what was shown, 3-story buildings, 2-story buildings, it's not the same as this building, which is 1, 2, 3, 5-story building, 6-story. So you can't compare. And And the issue for me is really kind of primary facade. And if you're going to compare primary facade, compare A, and then we can argue. But comparing A and C, we cannot argue. A and B, the scale of this thing and the symmetry of this, it's very difficult to put graphics on it in any way that I think what they did in their proposal is the best they can do, but it overwhelms the architecture. And if they try to break it up into smaller pieces and different size collage, it's not going to work. So my argument is staying with the primary facade argument. Since there's a primary facade and you can't do it, I say no.
Okay. Commissioner Goldblum?
So interesting. I'm a fan of building signage. And I find that this application forces me to think about why. And the first thing I thought of was a few months ago or last year at the Met, there was an exhibit on the first floor in the sculpture department, the classical sculpture called Chroma. And what they did is they took classic pieces of sculpture that everyone knows in their collection, and they replicated them and then painted them the way they were originally painted. And it was shocking to see. And it took the grace and beauty and abstraction of these sculptures and made them into three-dimensional cartoons. And I thought that was a very, it really shook me in terms of my perception of classical stuff. And I knew about that from architecture school and how the Parthenon was painted, et cetera, and Gothic cathedrals were painted and all that stuff. But when we look at those, it still seems wrong to us. And that's because I think we're used to seeing these things as architecture or sculpture and as kind of artistic abstractions. We're in the business here of fostering the continual use of historic buildings. Historic buildings are used not just as places to put things, offices, warehouses, apartments, but they've also historically, consistently, traditionally been used as scaffolds for signage. And certainly in New York City, that is the case. And this building, when it was built, I'll bet you $20, they expected it to have signage put on it because all the other buildings that had signage put on them when they were built. It wasn't like some defacing graffiti that was applied at night by, it's by vandals. It was part of the process of building a building in New York City. And so for me, that's why I thought originally that this was okay. And that's why I think it's still okay. Because it's really about how it portrays a reasonable, it's obviously a historically relevant example of signage being applied to a building in a way that enhances, it doesn't enhance it aesthetically. I think from our perspective, it defaces it, but it works with the architecture. It's not just kind of slapped on a corner in an abstract way. It's there in a way that reinforces the symmetry and kind of architectural structure of the facade as a 5-bay structure. And it worked, with the brackets at the cornice, et cetera. So I think that it's very unusual. There's no question about it. And I certainly wouldn't view it as a precedent. But because there's obvious historic material there that shows that it was a sign, because it's had a sign for so very long, I think that we're imposing our modern kind of view of what we want New York City to be like on something that's historic. And I think I think this is okay. I think to Stephen's notion about the style of the signage is modern, right? The style of the signage is not what you would have seen in 1870 or 1920. Now, we have never mandated that kind of conformity with a particular style or font choice or image choice that you would see in that was shown in the examples. So I don't think it would be appropriate to do it. And in terms of preserving the signs themselves, I think that'd be an interesting idea. And we have done that occasionally with Pepsi Cola, the letters on top of the hotel at Union Square, right?
Who's
Rockefeller
replacing them?
Center. We let them rename them, but we kept them as signage, and we said you can't take away the signage. So there are, and we judged those based on their similarity to what was there in terms of size and color and blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, there would be a precedent for considering that, but I think since these signs were not noted as being kind of significant architectural features as they are because of what they are, that would be going a bit far in this particular case. So I'm for them. Yeah, Sarah, can I just say something?
Yeah.
Just to remind, I want to respond to something you said, Commissioner. In fact, the commission did historically look at lettering and size and things like that, which we attempted to do, and we gave up because it was so difficult, and it was difficult for the staff. So we have tried to do this in the past, and I think what we did was we sort of decided we're going to sort of pull back from regulating things. And really focus on the fact that the size of these things are going to be so small or so work so well that they're not, by definition, they're not going to detract, no matter what's in there. So that was sort of the regulatory stuff.
Yeah.
Clarifying. I remember that whole thing, and I voted against it, but I understand why it was done, and there's a qualitative difference here. I didn't mention also we have in the past asked people to hold on to ghost signs that are remnants of old signs on the sides of the building when they weren't planning on doing anything else.
Oh, we have.
Generally, they've voted.
We have not
Really?
required it.
We haven't
And in
asked them,
fact,
right.
we've allowed people to paint new wall signs over historical
Right.
signs.
I remember we've asked them, no?
No.
All right.
But it is interesting that, when we think about how we felt like it was very hard for us to regulate whether it was, illustrative versus photorealistic and those terms. And that was really in the context of the master plans, right? We were starting to see them as master plans, and the idea is that they would change over time with staff approval. And it was that those terms were very hard for the staff to enforce as they saw each and every sign, if it was supposed to be just illustrative versus photorealistic. And that's one of the reasons it became so difficult. And so we decided in the sort of nature of approving these master plans that we would regulate the size of them so that they weren't overwhelming, and then by definition could have any content. But I do think that if it were a one-time proposal, that might be different. Maybe we can then regulate signage or font or versus color and graphic type, because it would be a one-time thing. It wouldn't be something that the staff would have to continually impose or apply a standard to. So that's something to think about.
But
Just sort of like the signs on the buildings are one-time change, right? The RCA became GE and then became Comcast, but they were one-time approvals. They weren't something the staff then had to manage.
I just wanted to say, because we do regulate color, building facade, paint color proposals, this one is tricky because the scale is so large that it affects the entire sense of the color of the building because it covers so much of the facade. So if we allow that real estate to be anything, then we have to be willing to accept that it can be anything. So.
Right. Unless we decided, we'll see how the rest of the discussion goes, but maybe there's some support for sign, but not as a master plan. It's a one-time thing with different parameters. Commissioner Chen?
Very interesting discussion. I'm leaning toward Michael Goldblum in this case, for the simple reason that let's do the opposite, which is that take away the sign and what would the facade look like? Totally blank. I would say that was rather odd in the sense that you have a 5-bay design, in which case historically you have signs in the middle, and all of a sudden you have 2 pieces of blank wall. I do agree with some of the concerns about, we cannot regulate the content or the color or the graphic, which is the weakness of this proposal here. But on the opposite side, historically, you have this contextual building that is meant to have signs. And I just think the opposite, which is that if we denied it, what would the blank wall look like? And to me, it would be I'd rather have something to look at than a totally blank. But obviously, I'd like to listen to what the rest of the commission like to see what you can do in terms of the size, the scale, and the color or whatever.
Okay. Vice Chair Bland.
Wow, such loudness, such oratory I've rarely heard around this table. It's really thrilling to hear such smart thoughts being expressed. I have to admit that I've never been persuaded that because it used to be in the old days, it needs to be, or is a rationale for why it should be today. It just doesn't square with me exactly philosophically. And I think I approach and have always approached signs on buildings very gingerly and hesitantly. Maybe I view signs in cities, in this city, the way I view signs on highways. The fewer of them, the better. So I approach this application with that bias, if you want to call it that. And I'm afraid I'm in the no camp that this is not appropriate. Again, trying to get rid of those biases and just talk about what I think Mark is suggesting we should speak of, which is clearly, in my opinion, something that fights the architecture, makes me unable to appreciate to the full extent that this building deserves. I mean, look at the current view. I understand the building, I understand the architecture in a much better way than I do with this glaring and huge colorful signs on either one on the right. So I just think it competes, and it's the primary facade as well. It competes. What I'm a little unclear about, Sarah, is if this came back as a one-off as opposed to a master plan, could then we approve a specific sign?
Well, then I think we would be looking at a specific sign. And then we could really dig
And it
into
would
what
stay-
the color and the content would look like.
And if
Yeah.
it wanted to change, then we would have to
It
change.
would have to come back to the full commission.
So therefore, there's a little bit of a crux here about a master plan versus a specific sign, which I think is an interesting issue maybe for the applicant too to consider.
Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, as you know, in general, I'm, I don't know what, maybe I should shut this off. Wall signs on front facades, I think are really a different issue.
Be talking to that.
Yeah. Well, wall signs on front facades are written. I seem to be really resonating. Okay. As I said, I'm normally a fan of wall signs, but a front facade wall sign, I think, is a very different consideration because it has the potential to be extremely distracting from architecture. And it really is a very large sign. And normally we do not permit signs of this size on front facades. So that's an extremely serious consideration in my opinion. And I wouldn't want to approve a master plan to begin with, because I think anything on a front facade, we need to see. So that's number one. in the case of this particular application, I think that it could be less distracting and possibly more approvable if it were colors that, say a sepia or a brownish color that, you know, comported more with the original and also the, you know, the current color of the facade. But I could not see approving anything that was pictorial in the sense that it looked like a three-dimensional kind of image, at least something that was going to be of this size. I would want to see it be pretty much lettering, even the original ones, as far as we know, where while they were objects, it wasn't something, it almost appears to be a design because you're not seeing a person with a sense of a three-dimensional image. Or maybe you would see a three-dimensional image, you can't tell from the past. And you know what Michael said about what the originals looked like, it was probably much more dramatic. We don't really know what we can see is not, but we don't know exactly the original colors and stuff. But to me, currently, anything this large has to be very recessive and blended in order to even consider approving something that was this large. And to me, that would be, you know, just some kind of print text, maybe on a very, you know, blending in background. Because I think anything else really competes with the architecture. And as I said, I would want to see also any front facade applications for things that are this large, because I think they're potentially just really, really distracting. So I don't see how we could create a master plan for front facades on this kind of signage. So I could not, you know, approve this application.
Thank you all for your comments. Oh, Jeannie, I keep forgetting that you're over there. I'm so sorry. I'm kidding. Oh. I just put it on and don't put it near me, please. Thank you so much. So I wasn't here for the for the initial presentation. And I do have to echo, I guess, my sentiments about how wonderful it was actually to see sort of the history of this neighborhood at that time. And it was a point in time, and the neighborhood was a real place of industry and commerce. And all of that signage that existed there was very, very important to supporting those commercial activities. Now the neighborhood has evolved and it's a completely different place. It's very mixed use. There's residential, high end. There are businesses, and there's retail, low, high, kind of all over the place. And so I feel like the way we approach this today really needs to be different from the way it was approached many years ago. I really truly appreciate the fact that the commission has worked to recognize the importance of signage in this district by allowing it to be here, but by really focusing on its being on the secondary facades of buildings. It's sort of wonderful in a way to see it that way, because what it does is it reminds us of what was here, and it also accepts a sort of a new
a new expression and one that works within, you know, those side facades and that historical context, but projects something that is more modern. I am not sure that at this time in history and based on the uses in this particular area that we want to really start allowing signage on the front facades of these buildings. I think this could be very precedent setting, especially as a master plan, but even if not. And I think it would continue to, it would change the nature of how we actually even look at these buildings. What we're doing right now is we are, whatever the architecture of these buildings are, we are respecting them for what they are. And I think by allowing this kind of installation on the building, it completely changes the dialogue that we have with the architecture. And I think that would be very unfortunate because I think we've worked very, very hard to preserve and respect what's there. So I don't really feel that that this works in and of itself. I think it distracts tremendously. I said that I thought it would be precedent setting. And that's it.
Thank you all. Okay, so I think where we are is we're not going to take an action today. I think we had two commissioners who supported the idea. I think a couple who really don't support the idea of new signs on a primary facade. But then there are others that I think recognize the history of signs in this location. And I think there may be some room to think about a very site-specific sign, maybe not as a master plan, that where one could speak and regulate the content and color and size very specifically as a one-time installation. So that may be something for you to explore that might bring along some of the people who are not comfortable with it today. Okay. So we won't take an action and we'll give you that opportunity and we'll move to the next public meeting item.
We'll move to public meeting item number 2, LPC 24-02924, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 626, Lots 6 and 7, 64 and 66 Horatio Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District. These are 2 Greek Revival style row houses built in 1845 to 46 with major alterations to 66 Horatio in the 20th century. The application is to combine the buildings and alter floor levels in the party wall, excavate, replace doors and windows, install ironwork, alter facades, demolish a portion of the rear extension, and install rooftop mechanical equipment. This was last presented at the public hearing on August 6, 2024. No action was taken at that time. The applicants will present revisions to the proposal after we open the proceedings.
Okay, we'll do that now. Commissioner Lutfi, would you make a motion to open the proceedings? Thank you. Commissioner Chu, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, you may begin.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Mary Derricks. I'm the preservation consultant for this project. Presenting with me today are Susanna Simon-Pietri and Elizabeth Walsh from Chango Architect and Marie Ennis from Old Structures Engineering. But we're going to all be brief. This is to recap for those of you who weren't here. This is 2 buildings being joined together, 66 and 64 Horatio Street. The floor levels are different, so we're proposing to level the floors, to add a new storefront or change, replace the storefront, and to adjust windows in the side and the rear to align with the new floor levels. At the August hearing, the commissioner's comments were to reduce exterior intervention, to maintain the historic commercial ground floor and the irregular rear facade window treatment, restudy the side facade proportions, reduce the height of the HVAC units on the roof, and maintain the structural integrity of the houses. In response, the application was revised to maintain the commercial ground floor and the side door, to maintain the rear facade irregularity of the windows and the relationship of the building next door. The side facade brownstone base was lowered to match the height of 64's brownstone base, and it's finished with a reveal. The height of the rooftop HVAC was reduced, and responsible structural intervention will be ensured through careful design and staging, and Marie is going to be talking about that with you. As a reminder, the buildings were built in 1845 to 46 as part of a row of 5. The side facade of 66 was completely rebuilt in about 2015 and actually is a brick over a concrete block. The rest of the building was short at the time and had extensive repairs and rebuilding. This is the rear facade and the view from the street to the rear facade. This is the storefront across the street at 59 Horatio. And we looked at that in designing the new storefront, not matching it, but looking at it. The presence of a remaining corner cast iron column shows that this building had a later 19th century storefront, because that would not be original to Greek Revival. And this would have been present before the 1920s alteration that you see today. So we feel that the proposed storefront echoes the type of ground floor that would have been more typical in the West Village and is typical today. Elizabeth Walsh of Chango is going to take you through the new designs.
Hello, good morning. My name is Elizabeth Walsh. I'm on the design team at Chango. So this slide is showing, thank you, Mary. This slide is showing the front facades of 64 and 66 Horatio. So we're showing the existing, our previously proposed from August, and our current proposed. So as Mary pointed out, the biggest change to these facades that we've made for our current proposal is retaining the ground floor commercial treatment at the front facade of 66, as was preferred by the commissioners in August. The historic corner column will still remain, and we're proposing 3 windows with transoms above, all with fixed clear glass, and painted wood paneling below and in between the windows, as well as a painted wood cornice above the transoms. As Mary mentioned on the previous slide, this design was largely influenced by the storefront across the street, which shows the small columns in between the windows. As for what remains from our last presentation, the remainder of the front facade of 66 Horatio above that storefront is still remaining as existing, and the front facade of 64 will also remain unchanged. This slide is showing just a close-up of our proposed design of the front facade with additional annotations. And this is zooming in on the ground floor. This slide is showing the side facade, again, existing, previously proposed, and current proposed. So in our current proposal, you can see that cornice wrapping around the corner to encapsulate that historic corner column, the door that we're proposing remain, and the paneling to the right of the door. Another change is the windows on the top 3 floors. So what has changed from our previous proposal and this proposal is the size of these windows. So these windows will remain at their existing sizes. They will just migrate down the facade to align with the interior floor levels. And as for what did not change from our last proposal, we're still proposing to remove the other windows and doors at the sidewalk level, lower the datum line of the brownstone base to align with the brownstone base of all the other houses in the row. And we're still proposing the blind openings at the rear addition. This is a zoom in of that side facade, and you can see again that image from 1935 that was included in our last presentation with the blind openings mimicking the size of those historic windows. This is a partial plan of the proposed storefront at 66. And these are wall sections through the proposed storefront at 66. And I'm now passing it back to Mary so she can discuss some historic and present day examples.
There is now a stone curb under the wooden storefront, and the wooden storefront has additional insulation. This is the windows on corner buildings often align with each other in height, but it's not uncommon to find windows on the side of the facade that don't align with the front, and which is the case with our windows. They're similar in size, but not in height, I guess you would say. So here are 4 examples of windows that don't align. The side facades tend to be lower, and some that really are like sort of completely different windows. Here is both. You've got the windows that don't align front and side. And these also are showing the typical wooden storefronts of, in this case, it's the 1930s and 40s. These are all 40s. Here are more typical West Village storefronts. This is all in the area. When I was doing this research, I found that really a ton of storefronts were projecting. We can't do that anymore. And it's interesting that they are all gone, and I kind of wonder about how long lasting the projecting wooden storefront was, that we have so few of them. But in any event, if you don't project, then it's similar in proportion and style to what was there historically. This is back to Elizabeth.
Okay, so speaking now to the rear facades of the buildings. So this is showing the existing, previously proposed, and current proposed for the rear facades of both buildings. In our current proposal, the one change that was requested by the commissioners was to make the rear windows of 66 more irregular to retain the character of the facade. We revised the size of the windows back to their original size, and again, the location of them is only changing, so they will migrate down the facade to align with the new floor levels. The other changes that remain from our previous proposal are lowering that terrace at the back of 66 and replicating the existing steel and glass doors that are at the garden level of 64 above it, and then also over on 66. None of that will be visible. It will all be behind that wall of the rear addition. This is a close-up of our proposed design. And this is showing sections, existing sections through the 2 buildings, and you can really see the floor level change between them. And then our proposed design, which is to level the floors of 66, bring them down to align with the floor levels of 64. Other things that remain from our last presentation are excavating the cellar, as well as adding an elevator. And this is a section through 66, existing and proposed. And the proposed section shows you the stair at the front of 66. And again, that excavation line, the red dashed line is the existing cellar level, and then you can see our excavation down. And now I'm going to pass it off to Susanna and Marie, who will be talking to you about leveling the floors.
Hello, so I'm Susana Simon Pietri. I'm the creative director at Chango. I think that we wanted to go over this. I think Elizabeth demonstrated how we addressed everything that had to do with the exterior that the commission had as comments. But we didn't want to dismiss the ask of really studying the split level and want to show you what that would look like. Our clients are looking, the reason why this doesn't work for them is that they are looking to be able to grow old in this home and also have elderly parents living with them. And the split levels are, the levels of the buildings are so misaligned that it really creates a big stair issue between the two connecting buildings. Some of the spaces, some of the floors, the misalignment is about 5 feet between one level to another in the same level, let's say, from building to building. So here, I mean, we don't have to go through it very specifically, but it shows you exactly how many steps from floor to floor. The biggest problem for us would be from the kitchen, what we would be proposing to be the kitchen to the living room, which is 10 steps between one and the other, really making them feel like two different floors, really very separated, which is what we were trying to avoid. And the next, is it the slide, the next one? And this next, that's the primary, right? Yeah. This next level up is also problematic because in order to occupy the whole space, which is what we would be proposing for the primary suite, there is about 10 steps that would need to take you either from the primary bedroom to the primary closet area or something like that. I also wanted to address, there was a comment last time about, you know, it would be easier to, definitely easier to gather two buildings that are similar in height. The clients have been living definitely would be easier than what we're proposing to do. But the clients have been living in 64 for 8 years now, and they really are trying to stay here. It's their home. So we're trying for the best possible for their needs and the building at the same time. Marie Ennis from Old Structures is going to walk us through now what the structural significance is for both interventions.
So first of all, whatever we do with these two buildings, we will be doing it in a structurally responsible way. Stability will be a special inspection item, and Old Structures has done similar projects at other buildings in the West Village. This is a plan indicating where work would happen for the lowering of the floor on 66, which is on the bottom of the sheet. So we would be salvaging the joists. This is the building that had a lot of work done before and just bringing them down to a new level. We'd be using a ledger at the walls, not pocketing, and it would infill the existing pockets when we move the joists. And because we can span clear of the elevator shaft and not use the CMU wall, the header and trimmer for that shaft will be LVLs. Then in the front of the building, we are removing some of the floor joists to allow for a stair that the architects presented previously. And we will be including structure that's concealed, that's going to be bracing the front wall that maybe was tied into those joists that are parallel to it, but it will now be braced in similar locations laterally, so we won't have any issues with the front facade. Then in 64, we are just infilling some existing stairs and making openings in the wall. Okay, if we keep the split level that we were just talking about, we have to open up the wall between the buildings. Now the elevator is at the shared wall. And we will need to use steel to frame out for this scheme because we need to use the CMU to bear on for the headers and trimmers. And then the stair winds through. The green indicate joists that all have to be temporarily shored, cut back, and then resupported. And then again, the red is the infill that will occur in 64 for either solution. We will have suggested sequencing on all of the drawings and again, special inspection items. So we believe we can achieve these things safely. Yes, so, sorry. So the gist of these two slides was that there's work to be done structurally, whichever scheme we go with. And it's comparable, I think, in the amount of effort that it takes.
That's our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, do we have questions, commissioners? Okay. Yes, Commissioner Chu.
Thanks for the structural explanation. I think that was helpful. We may have seen that the last time. I don't recall that essentially the party wall between the two houses is going to have to come down because it's located right in the center of the.
Well, they're actually proposing to have the stair in 66 and they would actually keep the party wall and just create openings between the buildings.
Right.
Right, so
Would-
that is the alternative scheme that would allow them to keep the windows at their current heights and not align the floors.
Hmm.
But the proposal is to align the floors. Which
Mhm.
would keep more of the party wall. And actually would keep more of the floors in 64.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Ginsburg.
One of the comments asked about elevator overrun. Do you have it or is it required?
We don't have one. We don't need one. It's not required. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so I think we can move to our discussion. I'll note that Village Preservation did submit a letter which was shared with you all in advance of today. And so that we saw this last time, there were 7 of us here. So some of you were not here the last time this was presented. At that time, 2 commissioners supported the proposal as presented, and the others felt that on the front facade where they were proposing a new residential door and windows, that the storefront language should be retained and that it should just be a faux storefront with curtains or something on the inside. And even though it's going to be residential. And then I think those commissioners also felt that more of the original configuration should be kept on the rear and side facades. And so and then a couple commissioners asked for the HVAC units on the rooftop to be lowered in height. And everyone was okay with the excavation as it was presented last time. So today we're looking at a proposal in response to those concerns, and they have designed a storefront. They retain a corner column that exists and then designed a storefront that otherwise follows sort of the prototype of historic storefronts in this section of the village. They've lowered the HVAC unit on the rooftop, and on the side facade, at the rear facade, they are still shifting the windows to meet the new floor levels, but they are keeping the pattern, the irregular pattern that was pre-existing. And on the side facade, they are shifting the windows slightly and have rethought the way that the brownstone base is articulated, and the corner, of course, has the wrapped storefront. And just as a reminder that we heard last time and today, that side facade is an entirely new wall on CMU block with a brick face. So there's no historic fabric actually being affected on that side facade. And so I think And then as we just discussed, I think, there was some discussion about last time about what would it mean to put the stairs in the middle? And that's why the applicants have shown the amount of work that would be required to keep the stairs in the middle and not align the floors. And what is interesting, though, is that if by aligning the floors in 66 in their proposal, they are retaining the floors for the most part in 64 and retaining the party wall and creating openings into the other, into 66, which often when we see applications to combine two row houses, that plans that we approve include removal of significant portions of the party wall and the floors in both buildings. So in some ways, the interior is being more preserved here than in other applications we've reviewed. So that's something to think about. So we'll begin our discussion. Vice Chair Bland, you actually supported it last time.
Well, then I can support it this time too, because they've even improved it along the lines that I think other commissioners must have suggested. And I think all those changes are actually improvements to the scheme. So I guess my question, I should have asked it as a question, is it was presented that the glass in the new storefront is clear glass. And we're going to see a stair right behind that glass unless it's covered with something. So maybe they'll cover it. I don't know.
Corey can answer that.
Yeah, my understanding is it's proposed to be clear glass, but of course the window treatments, curtains, shades, whatever would not be something we'd regulate.
Exactly.
So they could be up or down, but it's not going to be like an opaque white glass or anything like
Right.
that.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Commissioner Chapin, I don't think were here last time, but
Yeah.
but you were? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. So I think that the changes that they've made are in the right direction and appropriate. I think that the storefront is, a typical design and it's not an original facade. I also think that actually the lighter color is fine in this case because it fits in with the context and matches the cornice and the windows and other buildings in the row of similar, cornice and window colors. So I don't think it's necessary for it to be a darker, though that could be more appropriate. But looking over time, it seemed in various photos to match whatever the cornice was at the time of the windows or something. So I think it's appropriate. I think the blind windows on the side are typical of secondary facades. The rear facade, I think they've achieved some, appearance of separation between the two buildings with the design of the rear, and it's not visible from any public way. I think the HVAC is shorter now and also is minimally visible and typical of other rooftop accretions. And the excavations will be properly supervised. And I think that the changes they've made with regard to the party wall and stuff are things that I wanted to see. So I can approve it as presented.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Letfe?
Just making sure that works. I'm keeping my dissent. Well, I'm feeling much better about this project. I couldn't, I'm sure as the applicant can recall, I couldn't even imagine why the applicant was undertaking such a difficult project. And I completely got it, that the applicant had lived in their building for quite some time and wanted to stay there, but just didn't seem to make sense the way it was originally presented to me. And it seemed like too much to undertake to make it work. It's still going to be a lot to undertake no matter what, but I feel that the applicant has really done a good job of, in a way, simplifying what they're doing on the outside, which allows these two buildings to, retain their individual character in a way that, that works. you know, this new storefront is much more harmonious with the existing facade. And it really reflects better what had been there. I like the way they restored the column. And I happen to think that, you know, it's really great that they retained the windows on the facade as they were. Likewise, on the side, I think the moves that they've made with the windows make sense. They may not have been what was there, but we've seen this kind of treatment. It works well, and it's great that they're using brick that's going to match the existing brick, and the brownstone base seems fine to me. I think I really like that they revised the window size is on the rear facade. I think it works very, very well. Thank you for that. And I could never imagine what it would have been like to have, you know, the floors at two different heights. So I think it would have been impossible living. So this move to align the floors internally actually is turning out to be terrific, because not only is it going to be a more you know, more logical way of living, an easier way of living, but the party wall is going to remain, and the floors are going to be retained in 64, which is fantastic. I'm okay with the excavation, and I think it's, you know, I appreciate the fact that they've, it looks like they've eliminated the visibility from the front facade. So I think that works too. I think that's it. I think the project is much improved. It does give me, I want to say, some pause that you can see the staircase, you know, through the front windows. And I don't really know what the solution to that is, but I'd be interested in other commissioners' opinions on it.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Chu, I think you also were not here, right, last time?
I don't remember some of these
Okay.
issues, so I probably wasn't,
Yeah.
because the party wall issue that came up here was new to me. But again, I do remember the facade below, so maybe I
Yeah.
was here.
Okay.
Which I have to say is a big improvement to what was proposed last time. I feel much more comfortable with what's been done here at the storefront. It's more intentional, and it does have a sense of precedence there. I also think it's interesting that we decided essentially to retain the integrity of these structures. That's really what we're saying. They will have to redo the floors, which is a big effort, and they will not align with these existing windows. So I do see the fact that they put the stair. I didn't see a proposed plan in here. I was looking for that. I didn't see it. But it's assumed that the stair is on the entire front of the facade, all the way up to the house. I'm okay with it. I think that the intent of the storefront, although there may be window treatments there, is that you have a space that has some depth to it. And I could see more challenges for the occupants if that was their living room or a space like that. And the stairway is a bit of a transitional space, and I hope to see some depth in that. It also does express very visually a historic building structure that has been retained with a completely new life on the inside. That's what this is telling me. And I think that it works in this case. It's a lot of effort to join these houses, but I'm feeling comfortable with this proposal. Yeah, it's appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Master.
Yeah, I think that the everything that they proposed is a huge improvement from last time. And I think I was pretty supportive last time too. I would say that I agree with all of Commissioner Chapin's comments, and I can find this appropriate.
Commissioner Jefferson?
I wasn't here for this presentation of this project, I don't think. But there are parts of it that are really quite interesting architecturally. And combining the building and altering the floor levels and the way they did it is kind of architecturally interesting. Well done. The party wall, of course, acceptable. Replacing doors and windows, everything is well done. My problem is the false front facade, you know. This is really just a mansion, a big two buildings building. And we're saying we have to replicate the storefront, and it's hip and cool, but I'm not quite sure what it says, what's the message there, and that's my only concern, but I can approve.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And I think we did talk a little bit about that last time. It's because they were proposing a door, but the door also was a faux door because the stair was behind it. And so should we replicate a storefront or a door, neither of which would be real? And I think most people felt that going back to the historic storefront was a better solution, but it's an interesting question. Yeah. Commissioner Goldblum?
Thanks. Last time I did raise concerns about the stair and the releveling of the floors. And I think that they've done a lot to improve the scheme, but I'm still troubled by the degree to which they're putting a round peg in a square hole. You know, if there were any two houses that would be harder to marry, it's these two with the floor disparities. And the result is that the rear facade is significantly altered and replicated, and the front facade is basically rendered into a skin that doesn't really relate to the building behind it. I'm all for the fact that they've retained a lot of the wall and interior and the floors of the building on the right. I was troubled by the presence of the stair right in the front facade. I do think it kind of mocks the historicity of the structure, you know, in a way that is, I think, we would rarely have seen approved in the past. I wasn't sure where I would wind up on it. I think I'm opposed to it. I just think that it's, you know, there are some buildings that just, you're in a historic district, you know, yeah, they've done a good job of modifying it sensitively, but in the end, they're faking the front, they're ripping out the floors, they're faking the back, the side's already not historic. What's left? You know, I guess I don't feel that this is the right job. I think that they've done a nice, architecturally, I think it's very well done. I think that they've done a really good job of trying their best. But I really just think that if our philosophy is that, you know, there are just sometimes when you just can't do something in a historic building that works with its historic features, you just gotta say, you know, this one isn't for you. They should buy the building on the other side that has the floors aligned, and this whole problem wouldn't happen. I am troubled by it, and I would suggest that if it does get approved, which it sounds like it will, that the staff work with the applicant to minimize the visibility of the stair, whether it's by detailing or materiality or color. I think that a white sheetrock or a wood stringer, as shown in the renderings, is kind of unnecessarily strident.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
So in general, I agree with my other commissioners. I understand Commissioner Goldblum's concern. At the same time, we're in a position where we're not supposed to regulate the interiors unless it's landmarked. And so I think I can approve this. I would note two things. The plans are way back in the appendix that I dug through and found, but they really would have been good to have at least shown us the plans, because you showed us the plans for if you didn't level the floors. And so I think that was, and then the structural explanation was good, that by keeping the party wall and keeping the floors in one, you're actually probably doing less structural changes. So I can support this.
Commissioner Chin.
Yeah, it looks like the majority of the commission is in support of this application, which is not easy to combine two buildings into one. Speaking to Michael Goldblum's point and to Commissioner Ginsburg's point, I think that you know, the storefront and the color finish, I think that's where we can ask the staff to take a look at it. Normally, in general, color philosophy is that anything light, your eyes is drawn to it. So I agree that if indeed the stair stringer should be painted a darker color. Now, as for the storefront, whether you want to be a lighter color or a darker so that it recedes in the background, that I leave it up to the commissioner to decide, because if it's a lighter color, your eyes will be drawn to it. And clearly, Commissioner Ginsburg is right and Goldblum is right in that the stringer, the stair stringer, anything that's visible on the outside, if it's a lighter color, your eye will be drawn to it.
Okay. All right, so I think we can do an approval, and just with the modification that they work with the staff to minimize the visibility of the stair. Just sort of leave it open like that.
Right. In the matter of 64 and 66 Horatio Street, Greenwich Village Historic District, this is an application to combine the buildings and alter floor levels and the party wall, excavate, replace doors and windows, install ironwork, alter facades, demolish a portion of the rear extension, and install rooftop mechanical equipment. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Greenwich Village Historic District. I also note that the storefront and the one-story rear extension along Greenwich Street were added to 66 Horatio prior to the 1940s, and the presence of a storefront may have been original to the building. Finally, I note that the Greenwich Street facades, including the one-story extension, were reconstructed pursuant to LPC approvals in 2017. I recommend approval, noting that the work to combine the two houses will retain the existing facades, including maintenance, including maintaining different fenestration patterns and independent ground floor treatments at the Horatio Street facades, thereby retaining their reading as two separate buildings. That locating an interior stairwell adjacent to the front facade at number 66 will facilitate retention of the party wall between the two buildings, will only be minimally visible or perceptible from the street and will not substantially block any window openings. Yes. That the design of the floor, the ground floor at number 66, featuring a tripartite assembly of wood storefront infill separated by secondary piers with paneled bulkheads, display windows, and transoms will reinforce its long commercial history and will recall the level of transparency, materials, and configuration of a historic storefront and integrate the remaining historic cast iron corner column. That the entirety of the Greenwich Street facade was previously reconstructed. Therefore, the alterations to the vertical replacement of window openings and cladding on the ground floor will not damage significant historic material. That the size of window openings at the Greenwich Street facade will decrease in height at each floor, thereby reflecting the typical hierarchy of historic row house windows and minimizing the perceptibility of the misalignment of window openings between the front and the side facades. That the proposed blind windows at the Greenwich Street facade of the rear extension are in keeping with typical treatments at secondary facades of corner buildings in the historic district and will not call undue attention to themselves. That the change in window materials from wood to aluminum at number 66 will not be perceptible, and otherwise the proposed windows will match the historic in terms of configuration, details, and finish. That the rear facade at number 66 is a slightly different, on a slightly different plane to its neighbors. Therefore, the changes in the size and placement of the top floor windows will not disrupt a unified treatment of top floor windows in the adjacent buildings or call undue attention to itself, and will recall the irregular fenestration pattern present at the historic rear facade. That the combination of masonry openings at the basement of number 66 and the first floors of both rear facades and the installation of black multi-light steel doors and windows will maintain the residential scale and the solid to void ratio of the facade and will not be visible from a public thoroughfare. That the rooftop HVAC units and metal picket railings will primarily be visible from a limited view over the rear facade of the building and will be very minimally visible over the front facade from a distance at an oblique angle and will not detract from the significant architectural features of the building or adjacent buildings. And that the proposed excavation of the cellars and demolition of portions of the interior party walls and all the floor plates at number 66 will be done in compliance with the Department of Buildings regulations under the supervision of a licensed professional engineer to protect the building's facades and the adjacent buildings. I'll also note that the applicant will work with staff to minimize the visual appearance of the stair behind the storefront window.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Second.
John, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
No.
Commissioner Jefferson, Commissioner Lutfi, Commissioner Master.
Aye.
9 in favor, 1 opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. Thank you. And we'll now move to our public hearing agenda.
All right, we'll start with public hearing item number 1, LPC 25-00544, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 1091, Lot 45, 565 9th Street in the Park Slope Historic District. This is a neo-Renaissance style row house designed by Benjamin Dreisler and built in 1902 to 03, and the application is to alter a rear yard extension.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yaisa Armbruster. I'm the principal of Atelier Armbruster, and I'm here for the second time to present 565 9th Street, Park Slope. We're here to seeking for reauthorization of a previously approved project. And today we'll be talking about, I'm sorry, our proposal of extension of a balcony, I'm sorry, at the back facade of house located 565 9th Street in Brooklyn, New York. This is a 2-family occupancy home that contains 3,392 square feet and was built in 1901. The lot has a size of 1845 square feet and 2 stories. This residence is located, is that too much information? Oh, sorry. Okay, this one? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, of course. So this is a residence located in the neighborhood of Park Slope, where row houses, rows of similar houses are commonly seen. 9th Street exhibits an enthusiasm for all white neoclassical buildings inspired by the Chicago Fair. You can see that here, historical district. Actually, this is already jumping into, I should have a picture of they all look similar to this. I have a picture down the street later in the presentation. So in this case, the front facade won't be altered. The rear facade is where the work will be done, and it's not visible from any public space. You can see it over here. This extension has already been approved by the DOB. There is currently an addition in the back, which was built previously. And we're maintaining the general look of the neighborhood. And maybe I think what we're going to focus today is really the bay window on the back facade, right? Everything else apparently has changed since we presented the last time. This is a view of the courtyards. And this is the addition that we're intending to modify and install larger windows. On the left side, you see the current facade. The owner has unfortunately not started the work when we got approval and when we could have started work. The pandemic delayed things, and now the state of this addition is in such deterioration, and the client would obviously like to do the work. You'll see a few images later on of the bay window, and on the right side is the proposed rear facade. Those are the side views. Left, obviously existing. On the right side is the proposed facade. And a few sketches. This is the current state. We're also intending to remove the fireplace flue and the railings of the upper rooftop terrace. The materials in the back are going to be stucco in the back facade as the current design, with a metal non-combustible balcony and big openings with visible framing. Here you see the state of the bay window currently. I think squirrels have already nested in there. And this is the upper facade. This is the bay window that we're keeping on the upper floor. Obviously replacing the wooden construction of the rooftop terrace. And here you see a floor plan of the condition. So the upper floor plan is the current condition with the stair on the south side. And we're going to relocate the stair on the northern side. Again, here there's a demolition plan of the parlor floor area that we're going to be working on with the additional balcony, a section through the house. And
All right, so
that was
just,
it already. I'm
commissioners, I
sorry.
just want to make sure that that we understand what we're looking at today. So
Yes.
some years ago, the commission approved removing the bay window and the rear extension and replacing it with a new rear extension. That permit has since expired. The work didn't happen because of, as the applicant said, COVID and other delays. And so this is an application to reauthorize that approval. And but the only difference is that now that our rules have been modified since then, so the rear yard addition now meets the rules for a staff level approval, but for the removal of that bay window. So we're really, the piece of it we're really looking at is the removal of that lower bay window, which we found to be appropriate 6 years ago, because it's a one-off bay window on this rear extension, and that the rest of the row has a bay window at the top floor that is continuous, and you see that rhythm throughout the row. So they're retaining the one at the top floor and just removing the one at the addition, which is a one-off in this block. And that's why we approved it last time. Okay, so let's see. Yes.
My question to the architect is, the guardrail that you're adding. The language of the guardrail at your new addition is different from the guardrail on the top. Why the change of language? One is horizontal, one is a screen, and it's a simple. Just curious about it.
Yeah. I guess it's different use. We needed a bit more, or the client requested a bit more privacy on the terrace that is adjacent to their principal bedroom. But I see your point. I think that could also be exchanged.
So it's just.
Also, it was kind of. So the top deck, we're probably going to install a composite wood product. So it would be a continuation into the railing, while the balcony on the parlor floor is going to be all metal to fulfill non-combustible requirements on that level, and also still allow light to come into
So
the
it's a
basement
function.
floor. The function, yeah.
It's pure fun. Now that's that.
Pure function, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that, and of course, the railings and the balcony would all be eligible for a staff level approval because they're not visible from a public way.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and Corey, just, it's the addition is staying the same, it's the windows that are
Yeah,
changing.
the
So I
addition's
misspoke.
not being
Yeah.
rebuilt either. There's some changes to windows and railings and other things, but all eligible for staff level
Yeah.
review. As you noted, it's just the removal of the oriel, which is generally a significant feature, but in this case, the applicant showing that not only did the commission previously approve its removal, this is not the repetitive bay that exists on the other row houses. It's kind of a one-off on the end of this extension.
My apologies for misstating that. Okay, let's see if we have any public testimony. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I will turn it over to Gregory Kala to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a couple of remote participants with their hands raised. The first we'll be hearing from is Christina Conroy from the Victorian Society, New York. Christina Conroy, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society, New York. Now, founded in New York City in 1966, the Victorian Society in America is dedicated to fostering the appreciation and preservation of our 19th and early 20th century heritage. The New York chapter promotes our historic districts, individual and scenic landmarks, interiors, and civic art. The Victorian Society supports the removal of the existing stair adjacent to the rear extension at 565 9th Street. The stair is a minimally detailed modern addition whose removal will not destroy any historic material. We also support opening up the east wall to provide new windows. These will face a side courtyard and will not be visible from the donut. And we support the construction of the new deck and stair, giving access to the rear garden. None of this work will conceal or damage any significant architectural features of the building. However, we do not support the removal of the existing oriel windows to give access to the rear deck, removing the masonry panel between the existing double-hung windows on the west wall of the extension to create a larger opening, or installing frameless sliders in the new and modified openings. We are most concerned with the removal of the oriel window. Each of the 12 houses in this row featured either three-sided or curved bay windows on the front. On the back facades, seen on boards 2 and 4, the 11 which remain retain their historic oriel windows. These are also visible in the historic block plans. It's evident that bay and oriel windows are a recurring and significant feature of these houses. We strongly recommend that the oriel windows be retained at 565. The enlarged window openings on the west facade will be perfectly visible from the donut, contrasting with all the punched window openings in place at the other houses in this row. Now, this is not a question of providing light and air. The photo of the interior on board 13 shows the room already has large windows on two sides. The two punched openings of the west facade should be retained. Finally, we object to the use of frameless sliders in all the existing and proposed openings. They are a scaleless modern intrusion which has no relationship to the houses facing the donut. We recommend that the sill at the central window at the oriel be dropped to provide access to a new deck, that the sills on the west windows also be dropped if more access is desired, and that the wood-framed French doors be used to relate better to the existing fenestration. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Commissioners, my name is Lucy Levine, speaking for the Historic Districts Council. HDC believes that this building's existing rear oriel window is a significant feature of the rear facade and it should be maintained or reinterpreted as part of the proposed addition. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any additional hands raised for this item, so I will just note that Brooklyn Community Board 6 chose not to provide a resolution for this item. And I will bring back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. So would you like to respond to the comments? And again, all of the other window changes and railing changes are eligible for staff level review now. So I, just in the interest of time, if you could focus on the comments about the bay oriel window.
I would say that depending on when this addition was built, it was maybe even a bold choice to add another bay window at the front of this narrow extension. At this point, keeping the bay window would come with significant repair work. I think at this point it would be a reconstruction and not necessarily a keeping of the existing bay window. And I would say that since no other extension is visible in this courtyard of this block, there is no reference to a second bay window on a parlor floor. Neither does any other parlor floor in this block have any bay windows. The bay window doesn't continue down to the parlor floor. So,
yeah. All right, thank you. All right, commissioners, any other questions? Any final questions? No. Okay, so let's move to our discussion. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make a motion to close?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed, and as we've discussed, the window changes on the addition and the railing changes are all being reviewed at staff level. But this was an application we saw more than 6 years ago. We approved the removal of this bay window because it was not a feature that was found throughout the row. So not necessarily part of the original intent of the row, and that this row does have a bay window at the top floor that is continuous, and this building would retain that reading by retaining their top floor bay window. And so today, all of these, the changes we approved 6 years ago can be done at staff level, except the bay window. So we'll limit our comments to that. Commissioner Lutfi?
Okay. I don't think there's a lot to discuss here. This is a reauthorization of something we approved. The oriel window at the first, one above grade is an anomaly and an addition to, on this building, an anomaly in the row, and the changes are not visible.
Okay.
So I can approve this.
Right. Great. Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, I would agree with Commissioner Lofty on this. In fact, when I look at this, the thing that bothers me the most, which is not something we're even adjudicating on, is the upper and what happens to it with the addition that was existing already. So I just ask that the applicant work a little with staffing on that guardrail and how it interfaces that, because
Okay.
that to me is more significant.
Commissioner Master?
Yeah, it's appropriate.
Commissioner Jefferson? Commissioner Goldblum?
Agreed.
Appropriate.
Same here.
Everybody agrees. Okay, so we have, we're all in agreement, so we'll make a motion to approve it.
Let me turn that on. In the matter of docket 25-00544, 565 9th Street, Park Slope Historic District, a neo-Renaissance style row house designed by Benjamin Dreisler and built in 1902-03. The application is to alter a rear yard extension. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of this historic district. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not be visible from a public thoroughfare, that the oriel window to be removed is not unique in design or details and is in an advanced state of disrepair, that the windows within the oriel are are modern replacements, that the oriel is not a unifying feature at this row or an integral part of the significant design composition, that this simply designed rear extension, and that the proposed work will not diminish the special architectural and historic character of the historic district.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chu, would you second that motion?
Second.
Vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg. Aye. Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi. Commissioner Master.
Aye.
10 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. Thank you. We'll move to the next item.
Right, next item is public hearing item number 2, LPC 24-11111. An application for certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, block 1234, lot 70, 851 Park Place in the Crown Heights North Historic District. This is a colonial revival style single-family residence designed by Frank S. Lowe, built in 1908. The application is to construct a rooftop addition, install a fire escape and deck, and alter the rear facade.
Hello, my name is Varnam Morath. I'm the architect for this project, and I'd like to start. Yes. Yes. The building at 851 Park Place was designed by Frank Lowe in the early 1908. It's a colonial revival style building. It has 2 stories with a basement and an attic, which is currently unusable just as storage because it's so 4 to 6 feet high. The materials of the existing building is brick and stone. The special features are curved sash, double hung sash windows. It's decorated with stone cornices, and it has a classical portic entrance. Here again, with more detail. What's interesting is that the north facade, which is this is the front facade on Park Place. The north facade is less decorated as the front. To give you some context about the location, it's located in the Crown Heights North Historic District. It's in the block located that's highlighted in orange, bordered by Nostrand Avenue and New York Avenue. Okay. So here we see the aerial view from the south side. As you can see, there are multiple very a big diversity of different style buildings in this block. We have a 5-story building on Nostrand Avenue. There are some are semi-detached or attached. Some have flat roofs, some have sloped roofs. This is the view from the north side. Here you can see well that the adjacent buildings are actually higher than 851 Park Place. So these are some buildings I took pictures of when I was walking around the block. First one on Nostrand Avenue, and has a commercial space, then a 5-story building. On Prospect Park, there's a freestanding 1-family mansion, and on Park Place again, you see row houses that are attached. This is the current view from Park Place. There's a big magnolia tree that's an evergreen, which kind of covers the bay windows at the moment. This is the east view from the side yard of the building. And here you can see a transition from the decorated facade on the east side and the rear portion, which is very plain and undecorated. It just has simple stone lintels and no cornices on the roof as well. This is the north-facing facade. It has a stucco applied and tiles at the base. This is actually the view that's visible from the other street on Prospect Place. These are the existing conditions of the roof. So this project was initially approved by the Landmarks Commission in 2019, I believe, under another applicant. Approved was a exterior stair at the rear, and sort of a pop-up and on the roof, and the rear terrace. On the right, you see our proposal, and I'm trying to point out what's different. We're trying to accommodate everything under one roof. In the front, there are 2 storage spaces, and we have more roof terrace around. Here, quickly, the floor plans. On top, you see the previously approved application and the current application below. The stair location of the proposed stair stays at the same location. What we additionally propose is a vacuum pneumatic elevator to help the owner to navigate the building. For people who don't know, a pneumatic vacuum elevator is very unintrusive. It has no bulkhead and it has no elevator pit. Here you see again the location of the rear stairs at the same location. What we are proposing is to access the 2nd floor because of fire hazard. This building really should have 2 means of egress to get out. It's a combustible building. It has wooden joists, but no sprinkler system. So here you can see the light shaded green areas are our proposed roof terraces, 2 storage spaces facing the south facade, and a painting studio facing the rear. This is the new roof. We're trying to do this as sustainable as possible. So we're trying to resalvage the existing roof joists and any remaining materials as well. We are lowering the parapet walls in the rear. So we are also trying to resalvage those bricks for a portion of the party wall that has to be heightened. I'm sorry, it's not really a party wall, it's just the lot line wall. On top, you see the existing building. The roof currently slopes from the front to the rear. On the left side at the bottom is the previously approved application. You can see the pop-up and the existing remaining roof in the front. And what we are proposing now on the right side is a roof that slopes from the front to the back. Here, a cross-section of the building, of the existing approved and our current application. The existing building height is about 35 feet. The previously approved project was at 11 inches, and our proposal is at 41.6 inches. So our proposal is about 7 inches higher than what was originally approved. Here you can see the front elevation. Basically, the elevation stays intact. We're just proposing to repair the attic windows, the 3 windows that are on top. Here's the side elevation. Here you can see on the right that we are planning to lower the parapet walls and a capping of the chimney also that's in the rear. So this is the previously approved application and our application. You can see what's different is that we're removing 1 window to have access to the 2nd floor from the exterior stair. Also talking about materials, this is existing stucco at the rear, so we are not trying to introduce new finishes or colors. The addition should match the ochre color stucco, and the roof overhang should be sort of the permission light terracotta color of the tiles in the base and the rear. Here again, some axonometric views of the proposal. Here the view from the rear. Here's some reference for fire escapes. Some examples around the block of existing sloped roof finishes on the block. You can see a lot of asphalt shingles, some terracotta, and a new building that actually has some metal sheeting, the green one in the middle. We surveyed the existing chimneys of the roof. There's only one that's really active at the moment, which is on the very top left. We surveyed it, and it is sufficient, has sufficient height that it does not need to be modified. It complies with the mechanical code that 10 feet from the roof height, it still has 3-foot clearance. The other chimneys, the one at the left bottom, we want to cap off to the proposed parapet height. We erected a mock-up, which was a little tricky because of the sloped roof edge, but we managed to establish the roof lines. The mock-up was not visible from Park Place. It was visible from Prospect Place, as you can see on the photo on the right side. Here you can see the sight lines of the building, which also helps you to understand why the proposed addition is not enlargement is not visible from Park Place. Because of the existing taller buildings on the side, and the height of the roof gently sloping to the rear. So these are the renderings from the three viewpoints from Prospect Place to verify that the proposed addition is not visible. Can continue to the next one. Even if you change the angle further going back, you won't see it. This is how the building appears from Prospect Place, the rear facade. It's pretty much the rear yards have mature trees. If you go to the side a little bit from the first view and you zoom in, you see the building, and we photoshopped it in how it will appear.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, do we have questions? Commissioner Jefferson, followed by Commissioner Ginsburg. All right, Commissioner Ginsburg.
So I have a few questions. You talked about sustainability. Will this be all electric after the renovation?
It's not planned at the moment.
And
because
are
it
you
would,
adding any insulation to the existing walls?
the new addition will be highly insulated in the roof as well. But since we are not touching the lower floors, this would be a big undertaking.
My other question is the two rooms in the front of the addition or storage. Is
Correct.
that because of the ceiling height?
Yes.
Thank you.
So my question have to do with the roof and the overhang of the roof of the wall on the wall, and why the overhang? What's the architectural reason for that?
Well, overhangs protect buildings in general. It also makes the interior space. It creates shadows that you won't have if you. So it also helps for sun protection in summer, so you don't have too much solar gain. Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Chu.
I'm trying to understand the detail that you have at the low side of the roof pitch at the front facade. In your drawings, you show the front existing facade and the roof actually just meeting it at the front parapet. Yeah.
You mean
that
this point?
Yes. And my concern is obviously you're down low, so you don't see it, but it's going to shed water right over that facade, which will damage it. And it's a parapet wall that's really only going to take existing water that hits the parapet and washes off. But now it's taking a whole roof. I would have put a gutter right in there.
That's
and
what we are
separated
planning
the two completely.
Yes, that's what we are planning to do. We are planning to recess a gutter in which is big enough to
stop it from hitting the facade.
Yes, and, we will probably divert the water towards the rear to bring it down at its original location.
Thank you.
Okay, and just a question about the visibility. So there is the view through the gap on Prospect Place, looking at the rear facade.
Correct.
And I know, it's your addition slopes down in the front. And so you don't see it from Park Place. But I couldn't tell if you had any views of the addition from sort of obliquely from either side at long distances, or is it just the view from Prospect Place?
You won't see the building. You only see it from Prospect Place or from on Park Place. You.
Okay, so it's really the view over the rear facade.
That.
And we previously approved an addition here, which was a different addition, which had that same view over the rear facade. I think you said this is about 7 inches taller.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, thanks. Any other questions? All right, let's see if we have public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who'd like to speak on this item? Please come up to the podium and state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Good morning. Barely good morning. My name is Sharon Wedderburn. I am the Housing Advocacy and Land Use Chair for Community Board 8. This application appeared before our committee on September 5th and subsequently before the full board. The committee itself had quite a few questions. primarily centered around the rooftop deck addition. How that visibility was not clear to us from the mock-ups that were provided to us in committee, whether or not we would see or not see from the rear, from the street, obliquely east to west. And while there are examples of other, another element was the fire escape. And while there were examples of fire escapes elsewhere, they were primarily on buildings that were both commercial and residential, located on residential streets that did not match. Lastly, it was said in the precedent a couple of times by the applicant's representative that we were being unclear, and it was an indication that we did not like it to be product. Even that advocates for historic districts put a lot of time to work in collaborative communities. We're just going to change your mic.
I'm very sorry.
Everybody else.
You're not. Do I start from the beginning? Do I need to start?
Summarize the questions that you have.
Okay, so the questions, oh, big difference. The questions indeed are what is the effect of the rooftop addition? Can it be seen from the rear, obliquely? How will you introduce a new element which does not exist any other place within the historic district? As you all know, the Crown Heights Historic District is quite large. There are 4 parts to it, and we could not find another similar example. Introducing a new element such as this would create a precedence, and we are very careful as to what we see. Aside from the existing fire escape and another existing fire escape, you recognize that we are not practitioners of this craft, but rather people who have learned because we're very involved. So the element of having a fire escape concerned us, and an additional fire escape concerned us even more. The applicant's representative, we want to say this nicely and professionally, did not seem as if we should be concerned about such matters. The examples that he provided to us were for buildings located on commercial avenues, specifically Nostrand Avenue, where those buildings have commercial and residential space. So we did not see any congruity in the presentation thereof. He was unable to explain to us why the facade had the colors that he was proposed and why the additions were used. More so within our group, and again, we are not licensed practitioners, but experts in our community. With the unutilized space in the attic and the rooftop addition for the penthouse / painting studio, how would that affect the lighting with the windows? And would it seriously affect or have any effect upon the experience of walking down these wonderful streets that present different examples of architecture that was worth landmarking?
Thank you very much. All right, noting that are you here to speak on this item? No. Okay, all right, so noting that there is no one else here to speak on the item, I'll turn it over to Gregory Kalla to see if we have remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have 1 remote participant with their hand raised, that being Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Commissioners, my name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds this proposal to be an improvement over work that was previously approved for this location, and we largely support it, but we consider the raised parapet awkward and feel it should be and could be further refined. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any additional hands raised, so I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
So would you like to respond to the comments we've heard?
Regarding the fire escape, it was previously approved, and I think also from a professional point of view, I think it's a life-saving feature that I would highly recommend to.
And it's at the rear facade adjacent to the rear
basically not even visible from Park Place because it's in a recessed corner that it's even hidden
So
from
this
that
view
building.
would be to the right behind the building
Right.
in the foreground.
Right.
Okay.
Regarding lowering the parapet, I think actually the the rear portion of the building is a non-conforming portion of the building, so it does not does not conform with the current zoning laws because it encroaches into the current rear yard. So by lowering actually that building, it will bring in more light for the adjacent properties as well.
Okay. And so, and again, this is the only place from which it's visible. Through
Correct.
this gap in the buildings on Prospect Place. Okay. All right, commissioners, any other final questions? Okay, then we'll close the hearing and begin our discussion. Commissioner Master, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
And Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing's closed. We'll begin our discussion. And as the applicant said, we previously approved a different rooftop addition on this building. And that application has since expired. So this is a new proposal for a new rooftop addition, which comes forward more in plan, but slopes down so that there's no view from Park Place as there wasn't last time. And the view is over the rear facade through the gap on Prospect Place, where you see the addition and a little bit of the fire stair, I think, that goes up to the addition. And then the other fire stair is tucked in next to the existing rear addition and only very minimally visible through that same gap because that portion of the lot is partially concealed. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Ginsburg.
In general, I think this is appropriate and I don't see any problems. It isn't visible from the primary facade and it's a fairly elegant solution. So I can find it approvable.
Commissioner Chen.
Likewise here, I think it's a nicely done proposal and I can find it appropriate.
Commissioner Bland.
I too find it appropriate, and regarding the new stair in the back, I think it seems like it's required, and I think it's located in a place that makes it not prominent, even if it is slightly visible. So I think it's appropriate.
Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I find it appropriate.
Commissioner Lutfi.
It's appropriate, very understated and well done.
Commissioner Chu.
Agreed, appropriate.
Commissioner Master.
Appropriate.
Commissioner Jefferson.
A very clever scheme of a guy accepting what's there and using it to maximize square footage. Quite cleverly done. Appropriate.
And Commissioner Goldblum.
Agreed.
Okay, so I think we're all in agreement. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make the motion?
With regards to LPC 24-11111, 850 Wood Park Place, Crown Heights Historic District, a colonial revival style single-family residence designed by Frank S. Lowe and built in 1908. Application is to construct a rooftop addition, install a fire escape and deck, and alter the rear facade. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Crown's Heights North Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not eliminate any significant architectural or historic features, that the proposed one-story rooftop addition will be sloped upward away from the front of the building behind a tall parapet and will not be visible in conjunction with the primary facade, that the proposed rooftop addition will only be visible from the rear through the gap in the street wall at Prospect Place, where it will read as a separate volume and will not alter the perceived height and bulk of the rear facade, that the design massing of the rooftop addition featuring a sloped overhang roofline, neutral stucco cladding, and large window openings will read as a contemporary addition that is distinct from the historic building while harmonizing with the material and finishes found at the building. That the rear facade has been altered with stucco coating and does not retain any significant features and that this building will not built as part of a row, therefore lowering rear parapet and extending the rooftop addition moderately beyond the original rear facade to land on the roof of the extension will not disrupt an intact series of rear facades. That the proposed fire escape and deck at the side of the rear extension is simply designed and in keeping with the utilitarian features of this type and will only be minimally visible through a gap in the street wall at Prospect Place and will not call undue attention to itself, and that the proposed work will not diminish the special character of the building or the Crown Heights North Historic District 2.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Aye. Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen.
Aye.
Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum. Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi. Commissioner Master.
Aye.
10 in favor, none opposed. The motion passes.
Approved, and we'll move to the next item.
Right, next item is public hearing item number 3, LPC 23-04449. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of the Bronx, block 5813, lot 105, 4401 Manhattan College Parkway in the Fieldston Historic District. This is a Mediterranean revival style house designed by Dwight James Baum, built 1930 to 31. The application is to legalize removal of a staircase and construction of an above-ground pool and decks, placement of areaway ironwork and historic gates, windows, doors, and gutters, and the installation of a balcony, awning, lighting, cameras, and speakers without LPC permits.
Hi, my name is Stefano Morisi of the OIO Design Office. So we were called by our client to build a terrace and a pool in the rear yard of this building. Then once we filed to landmarks, then we had a walkthrough with landmarks, and the building had various violations that we're gonna illustrate here. Now, this is a building that was built in 1930s in the Fieldstone district in the Bronx. It's on Manhattan College Parkway 4401. It is a Mediterranean revival building, and we didn't have many pictures to go by, but the main image that we have here, you see the original conditions on the left. So practically, we had various elements that were not changed by previous owner, and they did not match what the historic nature of the building. So mainly the elements were the gate, the main entry gate, and the ironwork around the fence, the windows and doors, a balcony and awning, gutters, lights and cameras and speakers that were installed, and in the process of all this, also an exterior stairs in the rear yard was removed. So here you can see in the axonometric the elements that we analyze for each of these violations. So the first one is the wrought iron gate in the front. You can see the original on the left. This was unfortunately replaced with a modern panel and steel, black steel design. The other elements that were replaced were the fence and the parapets on the since this building is elevated on all the yards in the front. You can see better here. So these are the main two elements. One is the gate and one are the parapets. It's all in the same black painted steel elements, square elements. All the rest, all the all the work, the stonework, all that is original and has been maintained. The other elements were the existing windows, which some have been replaced. Most of the windows have been replaced with the same sash and multi-light sash, steel windows. One that was an existing fixed, the one that you see on the bottom right, that was an existing, that was there already. It was existing fixed frame window. The other one that was on the main facade is on the bottom left, is a folding door that has been replaced. I don't have the picture of the original one. Then we go to the other elements, which is the balcony and an awning that was built on top of the main entrance, the arched entrance. In this case, the balcony, the second picture on the left, wasn't ironwork, was original to the building. And this was replaced by a metal and glass parapet. The same metal and glass parapet was also replacing the, well, not original, the canopy in front of on top of the entrance, but it was removed and replaced above the entrance. This is a close-up of the balcony and the canopy on top of the entrance, and also a picture of the main entry door that was replaced. The other element that has been replaced is the gutters. The original gutters were in copper, as in description in the designation report. The new gutters have been in leaders and have been replaced with black aluminum elements. And then here we have additions, not replacements, but additions to what was not there before. There weren't any lights on the building, exterior lights, and these have been installed mainly at the main facade. So we have a light at the entry, under the balcony, and lights also on the other facades, on the front facade and the west facades. Also in the rear facades, as indicated here, there are, as shown here in the photo on the right, all those lights have been, cameras and lights have been added. The last thing during our process, while this was in filing, we're still in landmark filing, the rear original stairway was removed, which you can see on the bottom right, on the bottom left. And they already had gone forward with work at the back with retaining walls. So those are the main elements of the violations. The rear, this is what on top you can see this, the scope of the work on the rear. So the stairs, this was taken, this was done at October, I think, 2023. So the stairs are still there. But the scope is to remove, excavate the rear yard, build retaining walls, and build a pool. The rear is not cannot be seen from a public way. It's in the rear yard. This is an elevation showing the what would be the new new stairways in the rear. And this is just a simple render of what it would look like. That's it.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, do we have questions? Yes, Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, one of the pictures says original front facade and it's showing awnings with all, which if any of those awnings were original.
The front facade.
And if you could just point out the features
tile.
original on the front facade in general.
Over the windows and the door, there were tiled awnings. The red.
So okay, and so there's awning in the front of on top of the
Yes.
on top of the fixed window. Let me just see if there's a picture that is better. So this is on top of the fixed window. So that remained.
Yeah.
That remained. The one that was removed was the canopy. Let me see. So I don't know if you can see the picture on the original designation picture on the left. There was a canopy which was not historical, that was removed. And what he had
The
built.
canvas.
Yeah, sorry,
was
the canvas,
removed,
yeah.
But the tile clad one over the window remains.
Yeah, that remained, yeah.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
remains. There's
Got it.
the other one was in the rear, but that was
Yeah.
removed. The other one is
I'm
you
more
can see in these
concerned about
pictures
the
was
front, thank you.
was
I
in the
understand
rear
changes.
stairs. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
I have three questions, and one of them is the half circle door on 2G 109. What happened to that? You see that half circle door there?
Where, sorry?
Second image on the bottom.
An image at the bottom.
Yes, that's in the rear.
That's gone.
That was removed, yeah.
Gone.
I don't know if it was, I don't know when, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because all the photos that you see were 2023 already. All the
Okay.
photos that we took. The others, the ones on the left are always the historical photos or photos that we found on the internet or.
Okay,
in
the second
other-
question is on drawing A300. What happened to the gutter?
A,
There's no gutters anymore.
no, this was just a sketch to, yeah, no, the gutters are there. We're not touching the
they-
gutters. Yeah.
They replaced copper gutters and leaders with new black aluminum gutters and leaders. So they're
Right, but-
there, they're just not shown in that
But
rendering.
they should be there, right? I mean,
They should be there.
Yeah, they should, yeah, you're right, you should.
and the third
There-
question is, what's the color of the original windows? Were they white? When I look at the original drawings, they were white, right?
No, original were all black.
From the
Uh,
original?
Yeah, let me see if there's a picture showing them. Because these are all replaced. The problem is there's no real,
If you go to the first image,
yeah.
that one to the left, is that white or black?
No, those are black,
The black,
oh,
okay,
yeah, yeah, it's all black, yeah.
okay.
Yes, Commissioner Ginsburg.
They sort of look slate gray to me, not black. But I had two questions. Are any of the original material, like the original gate, still available?
Unfortunately not. I don't think so, at least I don't.
You've tried?
I
to
tried,
find-
yeah. because
Okay. And all of this was done by the current owner?
I don't know, when we had the hearing with the community board, he wrote a letter, that some elements like the gate and other things were done by the previous owner. I believe that some were done by the current owner, like the back, demolition was done when I was already, I was already called to file this, so some work, I think all the cameras and all those were done by the current owner, yeah.
All right, other questions? Let's see if we have any public testimony, and I'll note there's no one in the hearing room, so I'll turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a couple of remote participants. The first we'll be hearing from is Christina Conroy from the Victorian Society of New York. Christina Conroy, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society, New York. We do not believe we have ever seen a landmarks violation more egregious than this one. It is a thicket of inappropriate and destructive work. We do not believe there is a point trying to select work that can be approved. The house should be restored to its pre-existing condition. After that, proposals for alterations can be considered. The beautiful ironwork isn't likely to have been discarded. It should be searched out, repurchased, reinstalled, and reproduced if necessary. The masonry and masonry opening alterations must be undone. The new aluminum windows must be replaced with windows matching the historic ones. Canopies, railings, and other modern features must be removed and the original conditions restored. Finally, the poor repointing of the historic wall isn't listed as being in violation, but it should be. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. And once you are a panelist, please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC objects to this work completed without permits and asks the Commission not to legalize it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any additional hands raised, so I will note for the record that Bronx Community Board 8 recommends approval on the condition that the applicant follows any LPC requests made on violations to replace or repair what previously existed. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right, would you like to respond to the comments we've heard?
Yeah, I wasn't present when, unfortunately, when this happened. I think what the community board pointed out was that the main element of this house was the gate, the wrought iron gate, which had the name of the house. I think it's difficult to replicate something like that. My only view would be to find something similar, existing or vintage or something similar instead of just replacing it with something fake or built to look like that. For the other elements, I think the windows match what was there before. The only other element that was very original to the house was the balcony, wrought iron. That's it.
Juliet balcony.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Commissioners, any other final questions? All right, let's close the hearing and begin our discussion. Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Vice Chair Bland, would you second that motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion, and there are a number of components before us for legalization. And one is, starting out sort of at the street level, is the replacement of ironwork, including the gate at the street level, and then the ironwork above the stone retaining walls in the front yard. The gate was decorative. The prior railings on the retaining walls, I think, were simpler than the gate was originally. So we have to look at that new ironwork. And then moving inside, we are looking at a new metal and glass canopy over the entrance door and a new balcony that's stucco with a glass rail that replaced a Juliet balcony. And then we're looking at windows and door assemblies. And I think we're looking at the picture window. Many of the other picture windows, I think, meet the rules, right? So it's really the picture windows and the door assemblies. And then there are a number of utilitarian features, including cameras, light fixtures, speakers, and then replacing copper gutters and leaders with new black aluminum gutters and leaders. And finally, there's the removal of the stairs and the construction of a wall and a pool in the rear yard, which is non-visible from a public way. So sort of about 5 areas of work or categories of work, I think. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Chu, would you start this one?
Sure. Looks like a lot of alterations have been done to this house. I do want to point out one thing that wasn't just listed and was raised earlier in the testimony, which is the pointing of the masonry, which I keep looking back at the older pictures and the currents and the bright coloration. The roof pointing is done pretty poorly when I zoom into it. Gets onto the stone in many places. That for me is visually very distracting. So I would like us to make some recommendation about that. I think it's again, visual impact of it to me is extreme. In terms of all the issues, we go down the list. Whether or not the existing gate and ironwork can be located should be explored. I think that the current one has no relationship to the historic condition at all. It was a beautiful gate that was there before. I just think that the style is not in keeping. If we cannot find the existing old gate, I think they need to propose a different style here because it's not in keeping with the historic character of the house. And that includes all the rails around the stairs as well. The multi-light window should be consistent throughout the whole house. I think that one fixed single light large opening is not in keeping. The balcony replacement is very foreign. It needs to be replaced, I think, with the Juliet ironwork balcony, which is much smaller in scale. The size was increased like 2 or 3 times. It looks like, can't really tell. It looks like it extends the whole width of the large windows, multi-light windows below. And originally it was really only like 1/3 of the size. So that's throwing the facade off balance. I think that entry canopy is out of place. It's also oddly placed on the underside of an overhang, which is not at all appropriate. It should be removed. Let's see. I think that the number of fixtures and cameras on the house facade are just extreme. I really think that needs to be reduced. There are other ways to light the facade without putting the fixtures on the facade. I think maybe they could explore other ways of lighting this facade, bringing light to the area. Lastly, the stair removal and the pool. So I can't tell from the presentation how visible that is.
I think it's not visible from a public way, right?
No. Okay, I couldn't tell from the views how visible or not it was. It looks like it's sort of set in an area that might be kind of recessed already with walls around it. To me, this is a question about the way that the house, the historic house sat on the property. This in some ways may or may not alter that effect. It's very hard for me to tell what was before because I can't see to the side. I guess it is in a sunken area and was historically so. Is that where they're proposing to put the pool? I need a little more information. Judge on that, because I do think that you remove the stair, you're essentially adding mass to this back portion that didn't exist before. I don't know where that ends, at what point on the property.
Okay, got it. Commissioner Master?
Okay, I'll just go over the elements again as well. So I think that the ironwork at the gate as well as the balcony should be replaced to see if they can find the original or try to match what was there historically because it was very unique. I think the metal railing on top of the stone wall is fine because it's simple and, I think that's fine. The metal glass canopy over the door should be removed. It seems very out of place. The picture window and the door assembly should be multi-light windows. I agree with Commissioner Chu that the camera light fixtures are a little excessive and should be reduced in number. I think replacing the gutters are fine. And removing the stairs and the pool deck in the rear is fine because I think it's not visible from a public thoroughfare. So I think I covered all the elements.
Okay, Commissioner Jefferson.
Yeah, I'll make a distinction between the front facade and the back facade. The front facade and circulation, the gate is obviously everyone says it's beautiful. The guardrails also, there was a question in my mind whether we should change it or keep what's there, but it's also a beautiful handrail. So it should be, that whole sequence should be restored or replicated. Of course, the Juliet balcony should be restored. I mean, the facade should be restored as closely as possible to what was there before. The rear facade and the gutter should be restored to the rear facade. I can accept the swimming pool. I can accept the changing of the stairwell. That there's some, the roof used to be shed roof and now it's a flat roof. I can accept that because it's not visible. The gutters are important. The should be restored, and I think the rear facade sketch is fine. It looks good, and the materials are handsome, so that I can approve.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Ginsburg.
I agree with my other commissioners. This is extremely unfortunate. I think the repointing is another issue that has to be dealt with. I also can't tell for sure, but there isn't very good documentation of what the window colors were before, because at least in some of the photos, but as I enlarge it, it isn't very high resolution. It looks like a dark gray, which I think would be better. Also, the new windows seem like they're wider mullions, which may emphasize the black color, whether it's there or not. And, the pool is probably all right. I'm torn because I think the copper gutters are much more appropriate than what was put in. This is not the most egregious issue, and if the other issues are resolved, maybe I could live with it. But in general, I think it has to get restored to what it was before, with minor modifications to meet needs. The badly done work needs to be redone, and the light fixtures and security cameras can be done in a more appropriate manner.
Commissioner Chen.
Yeah, it looks like they have a lot of restoration to do. I agree with many of the comments that the commissioners have made, and as well as the comment about, the Juliet balcony. I see what can be done. So they must work with the staff.
Vice Chair Bland.
I think I agree with the Victorian Society's assessment. They have a longer view than but I've been sitting around this table for 16 years and I'm not sure I've seen such just wholesale vandalism as this. Sometimes we see it in new historic districts where there's an owner who isn't aware or something, but I can only imagine that that's not the case here. I think I can accept the pool. It's not visible. I'll accept the gutters on the presumption, generous presumption, I would say, that maybe the copper was deteriorated and not simply more valuable on the black market to the owner than replacing them. But otherwise, I think all the other issues, I think Commissioner Master really made the list really quite simple to go through. And I agreed with it. So it's kind of a ditto.
Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I don't think there's much disagreement, so I won't repeat everything. It's just a charming, rather really nice little building originally, and it's really just been, very, very egregiously abused, but particularly I want to, mention the balcony, the gate, and the changes to the front facade. I also noticed the stonework issue that Commissioner Chu referred to, that seems to be really a change in what it looked like, and now it's very sort of almost shocking or something. And I was thinking maybe a possible solution would be darkening the grout so that you had a more gray appearance, because it's these white areas that are jumping out. So if that might be a way to deal with it, quickly and efficiently, because it's not the position of the stone so much as what it looks like. Yeah. So that's a thought about how maybe to address the problem. So anyway, I agree with the other commissioners completely on this.
And Commissioner Lutfi.
So I think everything's been very well covered, and I appreciate the fact that the masonry pointing was brought up by Commissioner Chu, and agree with it. And I do just want to also, so I'm in agreement with everything that's been mentioned, but I also want to echo the sentiments of my fellow commissioners that it's shocking. And I'm glad that we know about it and that it's going to be addressed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think, there was some support for the pool, although I think we do need a little bit more information to sort of understand the siting and the relationship of the house to the landscape and how the pool changed that. But for most part, probably support for that. But I think some work needs to be done on all of the other elements, and you've heard the comments. So we'll have you work with Michelle, and we'll have you back with a revised proposal when you can. Okay, thank you. And because it is a violation and there are violations pending, we'd ask you to move quickly so that we don't have to move up the enforcement process. Okay. All right, we'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 4, LPC 25-00606, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 501, Lot 30, 99 Wooster Street, and Gay Activists Alliance Firehouse Individual Landmark, also in the Soho Cast Iron Historic District. This is a neo-Grec Queen Anne style firehouse designed by Napoleon Lebrun and Son and built in 1881 to 82. And the application is to install a banner sign.
Hey, Commissioners, the applicant has entered the hearing virtually. Matt, you now have control of the presentation. Please click on your screen. And then you can advance the slides using your arrow keys of your mouse. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Matt Calvo. I'm here on behalf of an application filed at 99 Wooster Street. This is for a retail store for Thuma. It's a mattress and bedroom furniture company. You can see, there we go. Sorry, excuse me. It's located in the Soho Cast Iron District, between Prince Street and Spring Street. We are proposing, it's a banner flag, banner style flag that's a little bit different. It's mounted with one arm at the top, and at the bottom it's allowed to swing freely, and it's secured with a small leash at the bottom. It projects 40 inches. It's 130 inches tall. Here's a look of where they want to install it. It's on the second floor facade. And it's, right here in this approximate location, 16 feet, 3 inches above the sidewalk. Here's the existing condition right now of the storefront, and it was filed and approved with landmarks back in June for the lettering on the top and the small vinyl applied to the window. Here's a a zoomed out view of their space right in the center. You could see that there's an existing flag to their right and some signage letters along their sign band. On the left side, it's kind of hard to see. There's a sidewalk bridge in the way. Some of the neighbors have similar signage to what we're proposing. 101 Wooster is right next door. You could see our building here. They have the flag and the letters. Across the street, 104 Wooster was a Tiffany's. I'm not sure if it's still there. And then 122 Spring Street around the corner is a diesel store. And here's another store, 118 and 120 Spring Street. These are two separate buildings with the flag right next to each other. And lastly, this is the historic photos of the site. It was at one time a firehouse. And it did have an American flag hanging at the third floor window. And then I'm not sure about the time frame of this photograph. I believe it's the 70s or 80s. And they had a flag coming out of the window at the second floor level. So that gives some precedent, but again, we're proposing a more unique style flag. Thank you very much for your time, and any questions I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, do we have questions on this proposal? Or a pole and a flag or banner sign? And it, okay. So let's, yes, Commissioner Chu. Yep.
For the commission, precedent for banners on existing historic structures specific to their location.
So we have had a long history of looking at flagpoles and banners in this particular historic district. And of course noted that during the period of art galleries that there were many flagpoles. And so early in our years after designation, we did approve a lot of flagpoles and banners. And then
on buildings that may not have had.
On buildings that may not have had them. Right. And then sort of around the 2000s, I think there was a concern that maybe there was an overwhelming number of flagpoles and banners. And so the commission adopted rules for bracket signs that would allow a staff level approval for a sign that hangs from a bracket that would be project up to 40 inches from the facade and be a maximum of 2 foot by 3 foot in size. And that was seen as a staff level alternative that would be an incentive to do something, to do that sign in lieu of a flagpole and banner. So then we started to see many fewer applications. And then in recent years, we have started to see more applications for flagpoles, and we have approved them on a case-by-case basis, sort of depending on the size of the building, or in this case, there's historic precedent for a flagpole on this building. So we have approved it on a case-by-case basis now. Okay. Any other questions? So let's, yes.
Maybe hypothetical in this case, but if a neighbor had a banner fairly close to this proposed banner, would we therefore perhaps say it's too many on the street?
I think
and therefore deny this one?
It's an interesting question. We have certainly looked at the cumulative effect on a particular building. So if it's a large building and we've had applications for 2 or 3, what might have limited.
I understand on the same building, but maybe.
I don't think we've looked at it so much on the whole street.
Maybe we won't have to, or maybe we will, but that's a later day, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing is I just sort of described the history of our regulatory, or I've described our regulatory history for flagpoles and banners and bracket signs in the Soho Cast Iron Historic District. But I also want to note that this is also an individual landmark that we designated in 2019 for its association with the Gay Activists Alliance. So during that period, it had the same appearance, so as it did historically. So the facade was not changed when it was occupied by the Gay Activists Alliance, but it did also have a flagpole at that time as well. Okay, any other questions? All right, let's see if we have testimony. I'll note there's no one in the hearing room, so I'll turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have one remote participant with their hand raised. that being Christina Conroy from Victorian Society in New York. Christina Conroy, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society, New York. Now, this circa firehouse, oh, shit. Whoops. Sorry, sleeping on the job here. Where am I? Yes. Oh, yeah. This circa 1882 firehouse by Napoleon Lebrun and Son deserves to be seen in a streetscape without additional visual distractions. Located within the Soho Cast Iron Historic District, the handsome individual landmark was so designated in 2019 for its importance to the 1970 gay liberation movement. The proposed banner is enormous at over 3 feet by 11 feet. Almost all of it is blank. The lettering on the banner would fit perfectly on a bracket sign of the type shown in the designated pictures. This type of sign is more appropriate than a banner that competes with the fine architecture of 99 Wooster Street. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any additional hands raised, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends denial of the oversized banner hung at the second story and that there be a historic blade sign conforming to standard regulations hung on the shop front. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Thank you. So I'd like to ask the applicant if you'd like to respond to the comments.
No, thank you.
All right. And I okay. I was going to ask if you had a streetscape photo to give us a little context. But if there are no questions, I think we'll move to our discussion. So Commissioner Lutfi, would you make a motion to close the hearing? Thank you. Commissioner Chu, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. And so as we've said, this is both an individual landmark as well as a building within the Soho Cast Iron Historic District. And this is an application for a banner that would hang from a pole at the second floor. I think the dimensions are on the drawings, although very difficult to see on this drawing. But you can see that the banner is taller than the windows, if that gives you a sense. And we know that historically, as a firehouse, it had a flagpole and banner. And then when it was the Gay Activists Alliance, it also had a pole sticking out with a shorter banner. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Chapin, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. I think it would be appropriate to have a flag similar to some of the ones that have appeared in some of the other locations. But this banner, I think, is uncharacteristic and is much too large and obscuring of the facade. So either a short, thing similar to some of what the applicant presented, or a flag on the flag. There was an existing flagpole originally. I'm not sure. Well, maybe it's the same position. I'm not sure. I don't think so. Center. Yeah. So I think either one could be possible working with the staff, but I think that this is not acceptable.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lutfi.
I agree with that. It's this particular banner is very, very large. And so I would recommend that it either be reduced in size. It could hang on the side as far as I'm concerned. Or I really kind of like the bracket idea because the storefront is very attractive, and I think it just would kind of blend in nicely, but still do its job.
All right, Commissioner Chu.
I agree that the scale being proposed is too large. I could entertain something that was centered and smaller than the current proposal. I could look at something on the side asymmetric if the scale was reduced significantly.
Okay. Commissioner Master.
I agree with Commissioner Chapin.
All right. And Commissioner Jefferson.
When I saw this, I thought the banner was elegant and with the black bottom. I thought it was great. But
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, Commissioner Goldblum.
And normally I guess I'm old enough on the commission to remember the days when we were looking more skeptically at the flags in the district and remember that spirit. The thing that's really cool about the flag that was here at the time of the individual designation is that it was really a flag that had meaning. It had kind of semiotic value as a, we're taking over this firehouse for a bunch of weirdos, and look at us. We own this place now. It's like placing literally like, Iwo Jima, putting the flag in the enemy territory. And this is as far away from that as you could possibly imagine a piece of cloth with a pole to be. So I think that the right move here is to do a blade sign that would be approvable at staff level.
All right, Commissioner Ginsburg.
Not sure how to follow that. But I think a blade sign, maybe if they did some sort of flag that tied into what was there before, that would be acceptable. But clearly the blade side is a simple answer.
Commissioner Chen.
There are a couple of options, so let's see what the applicants come back with.
Commissioner Bland.
Mr. Jefferson and I will go down together, flaming with the minority. I think it's fine.
Okay. Commissioner Chapin. Vice Chair Bland says he thinks it's fine.
Yes, well, I already spoke. I thought you wanted. I thought you were asking.
Have you changed their mind?
No, yeah, no, or to read, yes, that's true.
Okay.
Clearly
Right.
time for a line.
It's called. Gosh, I'm so sorry. Okay. Okay, so I think while we do have two commissioners who think it's fine, we don't have enough to support it as proposed. And so we will ask the applicant to consider some of the options that we've heard today. I think you can do a bracket sign, blade sign at staff level, and then there's no need to come back to us. Or if you want to explore a smaller banner that evokes one of the historic prototypes, we can entertain that at a public meeting. So we'll take no action today, and we'll.
What about if I may, can I recommend a more
Here's the thing,
traditional flag?
The hearing is
Oh,
closed right now, so
understood.
you talk to Michelle after this, okay?
Okay, thank you,
thanks.
commissioners.
All right, we'll move to public hearing item number 5, LPC 25-02137, an application for a certificate of appropriateness. The Borough of Manhattan, block 497, lot 18, 560 Broadway, aka 560 to 566 Broadway, 72 to 78 Prince Street, 94 to 104 Crosby Street in the Soho Cast Iron Historic District. This is a store building designed by Thomas Stent and built in 1883 to 84, and the application is to install digital screens behind storefront windows.
Good morning, good afternoon, commissioners. Like Halloween, we're back. Hopefully this is the last of the trio of the Aritzia projects that we've been talking about for a while. We're going to go through this fairly quickly, we hope, because you know that the issue at 560 Broadway, the site location, I think is pretty familiar. We had the historic photos again. Just wanted to point out the building was always very heavily laden with signage. It was always covered before the Dean and DeLuca era, as you can see, and which covered up the cornice, by the way, which is really the good news is that constructions on the interior is moving on. They're on the exterior now and really cleaning up that stone cornice, which originally everyone thought was cast iron. It's even the community board was very happy with that. They pointed that out, that it's moving along well. That cornice above the awning, I say cornice, that whole panel. This was the previously approved area. My name, by the way, is Mick Doyle of Atchison Doyle Partners. And Liam Houlihan, my associate here, is going to take over on some of the details. And what we'll do is start this. We're here essentially to get some approval, hopefully, or present to you the screen issue that's come up on the other projects, the other two landmark ones. Liam, why don't you get in there?
So as you can see, we're today coming to front of the commission for three LED screens, 2 on the Prince Street side that are behind the train station and 1 on the Broadway side. As you can see here, you have what we was previously approved by the commission and now what we are coming for the board to have approved. And from this corner, you can see that you see the 2 Prince Street LED screens, but the screens are set far back enough that you will not see it at certain viewpoints. As you can see on the Broadway side, you will not see it from this view. And as well as there is no walls that are enclosing it so that you will be open to see on the sides.
Okay, and just quickly, how far back are they set?
Yep. So they are set back 3 feet 9 inches. And each window bay is about 6 feet 7 inches wide. So you can see here, this is the Broadway elevation where you can see the LED screen. And I want to also mention that the awnings that were previously approved do cover a good portion of the LED screens. And same here on the Prince Street side, you have the awnings that cover a good portion as well as the entrance to the train. And we have the 2 LED screens on the side with the 1 open bay.
There's no passage behind the subway there. You can only walk in front of it.
Correct.
The entrance.
So you see here from the plan, in the smaller key plan, you can see that there will be 2 open bays on the Broadway side that you look into the store and the 1 open on the Prince Street from this corner shot. And then as you can see from the plan that's blown up, there'll be exactly 3 feet 9 inches set back from that interior window glazing. And here in the section, each screen will be approximately about 13 feet 1.5 inches. They will be static, all static images, as well as they will be on daylight sensors to eliminate the fact of not having as much uplight, as well as to limit the trespassing light at nighttime. So when it gets at night, they will go on sensors to be less bright. And then as you can see here, this is actually the Prince Street. The building does take up the whole Prince Street side. And you have about 8 open bays. We originally came in front of the commission for, as you can see at the corner of which is Crosby and Prince Street. There was 1 mechanical bay, and then there's these 2 they were fitting rooms, actually 3 fitting rooms, and Horatio ended up actually getting rid of one of the screens that covered in. So you'll be able to see into 8 open bays on that Prince Street facade, as well as the 2 open onto the Broadway. And as many of you remember, the original Horatio that we came for previously for the LED screens, we wanted to show this again as there's a lot of similarities with the corners, as well as we wanted to take a lot of your comments from this original presentation into the new 560 presentation that you will be able to see on each corner, as well as not to have any walls that block or viewpoints into each side of the building. And then our final slide here, you can see all the viewpoints and renders that have been presented, as well as we want to mention that when we originally went to the community board, we had 4 LED screens proposed instead of the 3 today. And it was 3 on the Prince Street facade and 1 on the Broadway facade. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, questions, commissioners? All right, let's see if we have public testimony. And I'll note there's no one in the hearing room, so I'll turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. I do not see any remote participants with their hands raised in the meeting. We did receive written testimony from VSNY. However, I do not see anybody there. Would you like for me to read the testimony, or just state there? No, I emailed them. I haven't received back. So I will note that we received testimony from Manhattan Community Board 2 recommending denial of the 4 large illuminated screens as unsuitable in this distinguished historic Soho building. And we received that letter from BSNY recommending denial, stating that the previously approved lighting from the December 23rd hearing was already excessive, and now this is also unacceptable. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Thank you. So is there anything you'd like to say before we move to our discussion?
No.
Okay, and the lighting that the Victorian Society mentioned, they said this would be exacerbate
I
lighting.
think it was from the LED screens, the light that was to be given off, and with working with the Aritzia, they would have it on dimmers at night, as well as so there would be no trespassing light to adjacent neighbors. And we wanted to, the awnings will also cover a portion of the uplight that would go to the adjacent neighbors as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, so commissioners, if there are no questions, we'll move to our discussion. All right, Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
You and Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so as I think this is actually the third time that we've seen the LED screens for Aritzia. But thank you for showing the original one. And at that in that application, we did have a lot of discussion about being able to see around them. And so we talked about both their size, but also the number of them. And I think in that case, we did one on each corner. Today, the proposal is for 2 of the bays on Prince Street and 1 bay on Broadway of this corner building, which extends down the full block on Prince Street. So in our discussion, Commissioner Master, would you start this one?
Sure. I remember these LED screens from the last Aritzia store that we approved. And I mean, the question here, I think we said that they were acceptable because, you know, they were a little bit, they were set back and they were removable. And I think we limited them in terms of the number of bays. So I know that they've reduced them from 4 to 3. The question is, are the 3 appropriate at this corner? And at first I thought perhaps 2, but I'm thinking that because the awning kind of partially covers it, and because 2 of them are right in front of the subway stop, which also is a visual distraction in itself, and you can't really walk in front of, I mean, you walk up and down the subway. I'm thinking that the 2 bays here are okay because there's enough going on here that I think it's appropriate, and then 1 on the other side. So I can actually find this appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson,
I can find it appropriate.
Commissioner Goldblum,
I could find it appropriate if one of them was removed and the other 2 were taken down to the height of the transom.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
I'd find it appropriate either if one of the 2 on Prince Street was removed or there were gaps between the screens, so there was some ability to see into the store, because the Broadway side is fine because there's a fair amount of visibility into the store, but on the Prince Street side, 2 of the 3 large windows are fully blocked by these screens. And so either if one of the screens was removed or there were gaps between the screen, I would find it appropriate.
Commissioner Chen.
I'm in agreement. I think that the one on Broadway side is fine because based on other examples. But I think Michael Goldblum and Commissioner Ginsburg is correct that on the Prince Street side, something needs to be adjusted.
All right, Vice Chair Bland.
I think it's appropriate as is. And the reason for 2 on the Prince Street side is the subway, which Commissioner Masters has already explained, and I agree with. And for the store's point of view, they've already lost those customers anyway. They're going down to the subway, so they're not shopping today.
Commissioner Chapin.
I'm concerned in general about the whole issue of these LED signs that take up the window. And that it will be in the, we'll get a lot of applications like this, obviously, in the future. in this case, because of the awnings and the fact that two of them are by the subway entrance, and on the other side, there's just one out of the several. I think I can approve it, but, you know, I think we're gonna, as I said, get a lot of things where people say, I'd like to see, you know, a blanket of these. So I want to be very cautious about it, you know, in general.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Yes, like Diana, I'm not a huge fan of these LED signs that take up the windows fully, especially. And it seems kind of, not only is it fully, but the image is blocked by the awning partially. Seems not visually smart from a marketing standpoint. I do think the positioning of these three is particularly unfortunate in addition to the size, because they visually lock up the corner of the building. And they make, you know, sight lines from that perspective into the store pretty much, you know, very difficult. So my recommendation would be to eliminate one on Prince Street. I actually think it would be nice to move the other one on the other side of the column, but I also think they should be smaller in size.
Commissioner Chu.
Yeah. I'm disturbed by the size as well. And I agree with Commissioner Lutfi that I think it's obscured because of the upper portion. It extends the height of both lights. And I think a lot of the storefronts here actually limit it to the lower light and not extend to the upper portion. So I'm in agreement with Michael that I would bring them down and I would take one off the Prince Street side so that it's one on the corner. I, in fact, have a different opinion about the subway stair. Because the subway stair's there, I want to see more into the building and not block the whole corner completely.
Okay. All right, so I think we've had, we have a mix. We have a couple who support it, and I think a couple who would be supportive if either there was an adjustment to the number and or the size. And then I think some others that think that there needs to be an adjustment to both the size and the number. So we'll let you go back and sort of rethink your sort of marketing needs in the context of those comments, and we'll have you come back when you're ready. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna take a quick lunch break. We have 2 more items after this. But I think people need a break. So we'll resume at 1:40 and finish up the last 2 items. So we'll ask everyone on Zoom to exit the meeting at this time so that should you wish to return, you don't have any technical difficulties that you would have if we have to remove you. And we'll see everybody at 1:40.